Chapter 1779. Send me on my way? With just you? Do you think that it's still the same as it was a few hundred years ago? Yi Shiwen faintly said. This was a kind of self-confident temperament. The current Yi Shiwen had been reborn as compared to several hundred years ago. He was no longer an ordinary person. There was an indomitable aura on his body that made people admire him. It was as if he was invincible. In my opinion, the current you hasn't changed from several hundred years ago. Feng Ling frowned and said. He felt a little strange. However, he didn't take it seriously. After all, he had his own experience. You've only made a little progress in several hundred years. However, you'll be able to see my real progress in these several hundred years. Yi Shiwen looked at Feng Ling and said, Well, let me see how much progress you've made. You'll fall here today. The competition on the road to becoming a god has nothing to do with you. Feng Ling said, I've been waiting for this for a long time. Yi Shiwen coldly said. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen with some worry. He wasn't famous in front of everyone. However, Feng Ling was completely different. Feng Ling's strength was very tyrannical. Moreover, he had been the ancient Phoenix Realm's inspector since several hundred years ago. His fame had spread throughout the entire world at that time. Now, it was said that he had already entered the mysterious realm. Could Yi Shiwen be a match for such a tyrannical opponent? Everyone was neutral at this time. However, they were more inclined towards Yi Shiwen's side. He was a tragic hero. Bang! Feng Ling attacked instantly. He was too powerful. The aura on his body boiled in an instant. It seemed as if a real god had come to this world. Some people said that the mysterious realm was the starting point of the road to immortality, and the god realm was the end of the road to immortality. Although it was separated by thousands of mountains and rivers, it already possessed some characteristics of the gods. Countless rays of light burst out behind him. It seemed as if the sun, the moon, and the stars in the sky had been engraved. His dreadful aura suppressed the world. He's so strong. How can he have just entered the mysterious realm? It seems that everyone has been deceived by him. I'm afraid that many people of the older generation can't compete with Feng Ling's strength. They are indeed very strong. No wonder they are the ancient Phoenix Realm's patrol envoys. None of them are simple. The crowd immediately went into an uproar. These people could also see how terrifying Feng Ling was. That attitude of looking down on the world was not something that ordinary people could possess. Feng Ling's body was burning with endless flames. He rushed over to kill Yi Shiwen. His majestic stature exuded a strong sense of oppression. It seemed as if he wanted to suppress Yi Shiwen. I will make you understand now. Even after a few hundred years, killing you will still be as easy as flipping my hand. Feng Ling shouted loudly. The aura on his body completely erupted without holding anything back. His gaze was incomparably cold, as if it could freeze Yi Shiwen alive. Then come and give it a try. Don't talk nonsense. Yi Shiwen wasn't the slightest bit polite. He confronted her with equal harshness. He stepped forward step by step. He wasn't deterred by Feng Ling's imposing aura. His body also erupted with golden divine radiance. The brilliant lights overflowed and covered half of the world. It seemed as if the world was swaying along with his chi and blood. Bang! The palms of both parties fiercely collided in the void at this time. It seemed as if the sky had collapsed. A large expanse of black had appeared under the feet of both parties. This attack was incomparably dreadful. This Yi Shiwen didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. Has he also entered the mysterious realm? This is impossible. How could there be no news about him? Many people looked at Yi Shiwen in disbelief. Feng Ling and Yi Shiwen were neck and neck. Many people began to doubt Yi Shiwen's realm. He was obviously a king-level expert, and that was indeed the case judging from his aura. Feng Ling hadn't used his full strength. However, a mysterious realm expert was still a mysterious realm expert. So, how could a king-level expert have the leeway to fight back? Feng Ling, you've only reached this level after hundreds of years? Yi Shiwen sneered. He took a step forward. He looked like a golden god. His chi and blood crazily surged under the operation of his body. Yi Shiwen's imposing aura was astonishing from afar. It seemed as if he wasn't an ordinary creature. Instead, he seemed like a god. Humph! Feng Ling didn't say anything. He directly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of flame. It shot out and burned through the endless sky. It rushed towards Yi Shiwen. The power of the Nanming mythical fire amazed everyone. They asked themselves if it was anyone else in Yi Shiwen's place. No one could block it so easily. The Nanming mythical fire was the magical power of the Phoenix race. Everyone knew how to use it. However, there was a huge disparity between the power of each person. It was obvious that Feng Ling's mastery of the Nanming mythical fire had already reached an amazing level. It was superb and had reached the point of perfection. Yi Shiwen didn't even move. The divinity on his body had formed a majestic wave. It seemed as if it could crush everything as it swept over. Rumble! The fiery red Nanming mythical fire and the golden divinity crazily collided and devoured each other. The scene was boiling. The void was completely shattered. It was extremely terrifying. Both of them were evenly matched. It seemed as if there was no difference between them. Boom! 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 Both sides fought all the way to the sky from inside the villa. Everyone was frightened when they saw this scene, especially many people who had underestimated Yi Shiwen. His strength was far more powerful than what they had originally imagined. Feng Ling probably hasn't used his full strength. Otherwise, this kid won't be his opponent. I think so too. He hasn't raised his momentum to the peak. Obviously, he still has some leeway. Many experts of the Phoenix race nodded and said. They naturally agreed with such a statement. Stupid. Idiot. It's not that Feng Ling hasn't done his best. He just can't do his best. At this time, in a corner of the villa, Qin Lai sneered disdainfully while drinking wine. It seemed that he didn't care about these people's professional judgment. Ao Shiba, who was directly opposite him, had no choice but to support Qin Lai on this issue. He naturally couldn't say anything to support Qin Lai. However, his tacit attitude had already shown everything. It's impossible. How can Yi Shiwen be so powerful? At least on the battlefield, Yi Shiwen doesn't have the upper hand at all, someone said in disbelief. At least they still couldn't get rid of the state of thinking that Feng Ling was in. Not to mention that Yi Shiwen suddenly had the upper hand, and Feng Ling was just struggling to hold on. All of this seemed so unbelievable. Idiot! Qin Lai sneered. When he looked at Yi Shiwen on the battlefield, there was a hint of playfulness in his eyes. At least this fellow in the demon realm didn't disappoint him. He had indeed done something earth-shattering. It was worth it for him to withdraw midway. Although it seems that they are evenly matched, haven't you noticed? Feng Ling, who has already entered the mysterious realm, can't take down Yi Shiwen, who is only in the king grade. This in itself is doubtful and unreasonable. Idiot! In the face of Qin Lai's unceremonious scolding, although everyone was embarrassed, they didn't dare to compete with Qin Lai. Whether it was Qin Lai's own strength or the martial ancestor behind him, they simply couldn't compare to him. Everyone looked in the direction of Qin Lai's words, and saw that although Feng Ling seemed to be in a very brave state, but it could be said that he was already at the mysterious realm, but he still couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's strength was even more violent, and it was even more wonderful. Just by relying on the strength of the king grade, he could completely contend with Feng Ling without the slightest difficulty. It was as if every bit of strength was used, and not the slightest bit was wasted. Seeing this, everyone really understood that perhaps the battle was far from as simple as they thought. Two flames flickered in Feng Ling's eyes. That was his origin flame, and it shot out at this time. As Qin Lai said, Feng Ling was far from being as glorious as others had imagined. Although he wasn't in a disadvantageous position, he also couldn't take down Yi Shiwen. For Feng Ling, who had already entered the state of full combat strength, this in itself was a very big problem. For him, this was simply a humiliation. Feng Ling, didn't you say that you want to solve this mistake of mine? Why don't you come? Yi Shiwen said loudly, as if he was provoking Feng Ling. You've only made so little progress for hundreds of years. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Feng Ling continued to roar, and the flames in his hands were also constantly burning through the void, completely collapsing and completely collapsing. It was unknown how many places had collapsed in an instant. It was like a landslide or a tsunami. However, he couldn't break through Yi Shiwen's defense no matter how he attacked. At this time, he looked at Yi Shiwen's eyes again and immediately understood. How could he not understand that Yi Shiwen hadn't tried his best? Not only hadn't he tried his best, but even this draw was the result of his calculations. He was humiliating himself. This was blatantly toying with him like a monkey. The anger in his heart could burn through the vault of heaven as he thought of this. He was a dignified inspector of the ancient Phoenix world. His status was very noble. However, he had become the target of someone else's teasing. This change made him so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. The image of that Anne in front of him from hundreds of years ago had gradually merged with the person who was wearing a mocking smile on his face. Chapter 1780. Hundreds of years ago, Feng Ling would never have imagined that he would be forced to this point by Yi Shiwen. Impossible. How can you grow to this point? At this time, he finally began to feel incredulous. Originally, he didn't put Yi Shiwen in his eyes at all, let alone other people. From the bottom of his heart, he actually didn't put Yi Shiwen in his eyes at all. Countless stars were twinkling, and it felt as if the boundless universe was collapsing around him. Since you don't make a move, then don't blame me for making a move. Yi Shiwen shouted loudly and instantly made a move in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint. There was a faint sound of Tao. In an instant, he stretched out his hand, and an endless scene of landslides and tsunamis appeared in front of everyone. The coercion of one hand was enough to crush the entire universe. The terrifying and peerless divinity directly submerged the entire void. And in this golden light, Yi Shiwen was like a fallen god in the world, with unimaginably terrifying might. Many experts of the King Division were instantly horrified. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to withstand such a blow, and would explode in an instant. This Yi Shiwen was so powerful that it made everyone horrified. At this time, everyone still hadn't recovered from the shock that Yi Shiwen had given them. Although Yi Shiwen had also given everyone a formidable feeling before, but that was only because his skills had reached the pinnacle. Now, he was actually able to contend against the masters of mysterious realm with the strength of King Grade. This showed that his understanding of the realm had already reached a shocking level. But what really shocked them was the strength that he had erupted in an instant. He had instantly surpassed the King Division and had stepped into the mysterious realm. This also made many people speculate. Originally, everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was able to contend with a mysterious realm expert with the strength of the King Division. All of this seemed too abnormal, and many people privately speculated that it was very likely that Yi Shiwen had already stepped into the King Division. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to explain it. Now, it seemed that it was indeed so. The sky was bright, and under everyone's astonishment, Yi Shiwen's big golden hand directly struck towards Feng Ling Bang. A loud sound was heard. Yi Shiwen's big hand turned into a big palm and ferociously slapped Feng Ling's mouth. Feng Ling spurted out a mouthful of blood, and his mouthful of big teeth were smashed into pieces. His entire body spun rapidly like a spinning top. Then he ferociously plunged into the bricks of the manor. Feng Ling's face was covered in blood. Silence. Everyone was dumbfounded. Someone as powerful as Feng Ling was actually sent flying by a single slap. This caused many people to be incomparably shocked. Exactly how strong was he? It was simply unimaginable. He had sent an initial profound life stage expert flying with a single slap. Exactly what benefits did Yi Shiwen obtain from the Nirvana Pond? How did he become so strong all of a sudden? In particular, Hai Wuya was gnashing his teeth as he looked at Yi Shiwen. His eyes were filled with disbelief. If he had regarded Yi Shiwen as a person that he had to eliminate before, then right now, it was very likely that Yi Shiwen had become the strongest opponent in his life. He was very clear about Yi Shiwen's strength. Although he was strong before, he was at most a king rank expert. Right now, even a profound life stage expert had been sent flying by a single slap. Such strength could be said to be frightening and could be said to be unfathomable. At this time, Yi Shiwen quietly stood in the void. He did not say anything and only quietly looked at Feng Ling. He was very clear about the strength of his slap. An ordinary person would have died long ago. Even if Feng Ling was a profound life stage expert, all the bones in his body would have been completely smashed. However, his heart was strangely calm. He did not have any thoughts of killing Feng Ling. He was strangely calm, and on the contrary, he felt a sense of relief. Over the past hundreds of years, Feng Ling was like a huge shadow that had been cast on Yi Shiwen's path of cultivation. Back then, Yi Mo had been utterly defeated by Feng Ling without being able to retaliate. In the end, it had directly caused Yi Mo to fall into a deep sleep for the first time. The price could not be said to be small. He had almost died a tragic death, and Hua Minghan had been taken away. For him, it was a humiliation that had lasted for hundreds of years. Now that he had gotten his revenge, his heart had calmed down. When he looked back, he saw that Feng Ling, whom he had once believed to be invincible, was now lying on the ground like a dead dog. He suddenly felt that it was somewhat ridiculous. What was the purpose of his persistence for hundreds of years? However, if it was not for his persistence for hundreds of years, he would not have been able to walk this far, and he would not have been able to hold on until now. Now, there was only one obsession left. He looked at the manor and suddenly felt a burst of comfort in his heart. It was as if the shackles had been unlocked. His state of mind had advanced by leaps and bounds. Perhaps it was not too far from the next breakthrough. Suddenly, a dreadful attack came out of the void while Yi Shiwen was sighing with emotion. The endless void collapsed under this attack and formed a shocking crack that swept towards Yi Shiwen. This attack had come very suddenly, but Yi Shiwen's reaction wasn't slow. He suddenly spread out his hands, and endless rays of light burst out from his 5 fingers. Endless divinities spread out, and then formed a golden divine wall in front of him and blocked the attack. Bang! An earth-shattering collision sound was heard. This astonishing attack carried a dreadful destructive power and submerged the horizon. This. Everyone was shocked by this sudden change. Many people hadn't recovered from the shock of Yi Shiwen defeating Feng Ling so easily. But they saw an even more shocking scene. This dreadful attack had directly approached them. It was even more dreadful than Feng Ling's attack a moment ago. Everyone could only see a figure gradually emerging from the endless divine radiance. It was Yi Shiwen. Even such a dreadful attack couldn't injure him. However, he was in a somewhat difficult situation compared to the relaxed and unrestrained state he had been in a moment ago. The divine wall had collapsed in front of him. The remaining energy had been dispersed, but its power was still not small. Did I see it wrong? Who attacked? It must be the people of the ancient Phoenix world. Who else could have attacked at this time besides them? It looks like there's going to be a good show to watch. Everyone believed that Yi Shiwen's strength was extremely formidable. However, the ancient Phoenix world had been established for countless years. So, how could it be ordinary? Perhaps this was going to be a dreadful collision between Mars and Earth. Moreover, it had nothing to do with them. They could just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. After all, they wouldn't suffer any loss no matter what the outcome would be. Just as the crowd was still guessing who it was that had made a move, however, they suddenly discovered to their horror that a young man had quietly appeared in front of Yi Shiwen from the void. He was clad in a bright red wedding robe. His handsome face had been distorted by anger. Yi Shiwen immediately recognized him. He was the same young man who had instructed the Power King to attack him outside the passage that day. Yi Shiwen looked at his bright red wedding robe. So, how could he not know that this young man was Feng Yuan? He couldn't help but sneer. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. He had also noticed Feng Yuan's existence. However, he hadn't made a big fuss because he had wanted to keep a low profile. However, he hadn't expected that this person would turn out to be Feng Yuan. It seemed that he should be the husband that the ancient Phoenix world had decided to give to Hua Minghan. No wonder he had instructed people to make things difficult for him. In fact, he could even feel the sinister intentions of the opposite party. They wanted to use the ancient Phoenix world to eradicate him. He had sensed it at that time, Therefore, he hadn't attacked them directly. However, he had no other choice now. It was impossible for him to watch while Menghan being taken away in front of his eyes. It could be said that both sides had a deep hatred for each other. Feng Yuan didn't wait for Yi Shiwen's reply and immediately attacked. His fist blasted out endless flames and transformed into an earth-shattering phoenix. Each of its feathers could be seen clearly. His fist intention had reached an extremely terrifying level. Look, Feng Yuan has attacked. I was wondering who could have such an ability. Even the Phoenix King is very optimistic about Feng Yuan's strength. A member of the Phoenix race said. The people of the ancient Phoenix world clearly understood how powerful and dreadful Feng Yuan was compared to the outsiders. All of Yi Shiwen's struggles are futile. Feng Yuan has the strength to advance into the Tao-confirming realm. Yi Shiwen is tyrannical, but he doesn't amount to much. He has now killed his way into our ancient Phoenix realm. It's clear that he doesn't care about our ancient Phoenix realm at all. So, even if King Tai Tsong of the human race truly exists, he won't be able to find any fault with us if we kill him like this. However, an even more astonishing collision had begun before he could finish speaking. Yi Shiwen wasn't as vulnerable as he had said. On the contrary, he had launched a counterattack. A golden sword energy condensed in his hand and burst out with formidable divine light. Then it slashed down towards that phoenix. Bang! An earth-shattering explosion sound was heard. The collision between the flames and the golden divinity ocean had caused the void to boil. Yi Shiwen's golden sword energy and Feng Yuan's fist ferociously slashed together. A loud sound of metal colliding resounded throughout the world. A dreadful shock wave swept out and forced the matrix inside the villa to activate. It seemed as if a formidable enemy had invaded the villa all of a sudden. The figures of the two men collided in the void and fiercely slammed into each other. A whistling sound was heard, and the strong astral wind blew their hair into a mess. Feng Yuan's eyes flickered like two groups of flames. He was extremely angry. Chapter 1781. Before Yi Shiwen came to the ancient Phoenix domain, he had already been plotted against by Yi Shiwen. He thought that everything was going according to his plan. Who knew that Yi Shiwen would break his plan in an unexpected way? Most importantly, Yi Shiwen even dared to make a scene at his wedding. If that was the case, even if Feng Yuan got married, it would leave a permanent stain on his reputation. He would become the laughingstock of others. When he thought of such a thing, his face instantly turned pale. He absolutely couldn't become such a laughingstock. If that happened, he would go crazy. And all of this was done by Yi Shiwen. Only by beheading Yi Shiwen could he redeem a little bit of his reputation. This time, the shocking collision brought about a horrifying shockwave. It instantly pierced through the entire sky. Countless clouds were instantly torn apart. Since his first attack didn't work, Feng Yuan immediately attacked again. He threw another punch towards Yi Shiwen, soaring phoenix wings. Die! Die! It's best for someone like you to never appear again. Why? Why? My pursuit for hundreds of years can't catch up to someone who hasn't appeared for hundreds of years. He still remembered that it was a snowy season. It was the first time he saw a girl as pure as snow. At that time, she wasn't even in the transcendent realm. Compared to him, who was the pride of the ancient Phoenix domain, they weren't in the same world. For him, such a person was simply an ant. In his previous world, he had always followed this simple and direct way of categorizing people. An ant, not an ant. He believed that he would definitely be the one to prove his Tao in the future. Many people in his clan had high hopes for him. They entrusted the heavy responsibility of reviving the Phoenix clan to him. Over time, he also felt that it was destined by the heavens. The heavens allowed him to reincarnate into the Phoenix clan and wanted him to do something earth-shattering. Hence, in his simple life in the past, he only categorized people in a very simple way. Even his clansmen were the same in his eyes. However, on that day, her appearance had completely changed the world in his heart. It turned out that there weren't only ants and non-ants in this world. There was also a creature called a woman. Such a creature could miraculously attract his attention. He knew that he had fallen in love with the woman standing in the snow. Later, he found out that the woman was called Hua Minghan. She came from the human race, but she had the mixed bloodline of the Heavenly Phoenix clan. This identity had become the target of attention of the upper echelons of the ancient Phoenix realm ever since it had been exposed. This was because the Sky Phoenix clan was an absolutely noble and mysterious branch within the Phoenix clan. However, all of them had perished in battle a long time ago. Therefore, this bloodline had been completely severed. However, no one had expected that they would be able to see the descendant of this bloodline here. Even if it was merely a special bloodline within the human clan, it was still an extremely precious matter for the ancient Phoenix realm. Just like the Dragon clan had many vassal and subdragon species, the Phoenix clan also had many subspecies. These subspecies could purify their own bloodline through repeated cultivation. Finally, they would enter the Nirvana pool and undergo Nirvana to become a pure-blooded Phoenix. Such a person wasn't unheard of in the history of the ancient Phoenix domain. Therefore, the arrival of Hua Minghan didn't cause the slightest ripple in the ancient Phoenix domain. There wasn't even a trace of opposition. On the contrary, the resources of the entire ancient Phoenix domain were inclined towards Hua Minghan's direction. This was also the reason why she had been able to rise so quickly in a short period of time. She had even surpassed the figures of the older generation. It was because the Phoenix King stood behind her. She had been accepted as the Phoenix King's adopted daughter. It had been thought that such a relationship could be sustained for a long time. However, the elders of the clan had started to become dissatisfied. They wanted to spread the bloodline of the Heavenly Sovereign. However, it would be easy for them to die prematurely if there was only Hua Minghan. And it was also at this time that he knew for the first time that there was another man's shadow in the heart of this woman whom he had regarded as a goddess. He had gone mad with jealousy ever since he had found out about this. It was the first time that he had understood what kind of feeling jealousy was. He used to be the pride of the heavens. People were jealous of everything he had since he was born. However, it was the first time that he had started to be jealous of someone else. He was jealous of that person whom he had never met before. He was jealous of that man called Yi Shiwen. This matter didn't only set off a storm in his heart. It was the same in the ancient Phoenix domain. Those stubborn elders hadn't expected that Hua Minghan already had a sweetheart. Moreover, he had turned out to be a human. Later on, they had also thought of a way to send people to the true martial domain in order to exterminate them. However, who knew that Yi Shiwen wouldn't be in the true martial domain at that time? So, they had given up. Who knew that this name would spread to their ears later on? Yi Shiwen had disappeared from the true martial domain. However, he had become a household name in the ancient Barons continent. He was a top-notch figure of the younger generation. This was also the fundamental reason why the emissaries of the ancient Phoenix domain had looked for trouble with Yi Shiwen over and over again. He had added fuel to the fire in the background. However, who knew that this man was like an undying cockroach? He had survived time and time again. He had disappeared for hundreds of years. Just when everyone thought that he had died, and he was secretly delighted, he had returned. Moreover, he had brought back King Tai Tsong, a huge backer. Even the people of the ancient Phoenix domain understood King Tai Tsong very well. He was a person who dared to fight against the gods. He wasn't someone they could afford to offend. Therefore, he didn't dare to make any moves even though he was gnashing his teeth in hatred. However, he still set up a trap. He wanted to invite Yi Shiwen over and then use the power of the ancient Phoenix domain to eliminate him. Who knew that he had miscalculated in the end? Yi Shiwen didn't fall for his trap. In the end, he also set up the last trap. It was the martial arts competition for the Heavenly Phoenix Maiden's son-in-law. As long as Yi Shiwen dared to appear, he would be killed by him. How could he not see that Yi Shiwen was merely at the king rank? In the face of a terrifying existence like him, who was at the profound realm, Yi Shiwen was nothing. It was impossible for Yi Shiwen to be his opponent. If Yi Shiwen died in the arena, even if King Tai Tsong was still alive, he wouldn't have any excuse to say. He wouldn't be able to continue making things difficult for Yi Shiwen. Who knew that Yi Shiwen wouldn't appear in the end? He was somewhat unwilling. At the same time, he was also somewhat rejoicing. No matter the reason why Yi Shiwen didn't appear, he had won in the end. He had won the beauty. The goddess in his heart would finally belong to him. For him, although it wasn't perfect, it was enough. In order to reach this stage today, he had spent a lot of experience. He had started planning from hundreds of years ago. He had used the thoughts of the elders in the clan who didn't want the bloodline to be passed on to outsiders. He had turned himself into a favorable candidate for this bloodline. Then, he had spent a lot of time to defeat those candidates one by one. He had become the most suitable candidate in the eyes of everyone. In order to achieve this, he had spent hundreds of years. When he was about to succeed, Yi Shiwen had actually appeared. He had actually dared to appear. The anger in his heart instantly burned. If Feng Ling hadn't made a move, then he would have been the first to make a move. He would have beaten Yi Shiwen to death. For the past hundreds of years, he had been living under the shadow of one person. That person was Yi Shiwen. He was an unparalleled enemy that he had never met before. All because of that one sentence. "Sorry, I already have someone in my heart." He didn't believe. He didn't believe that time couldn't erase everything. Compared to the man who he hadn't seen for hundreds of years, he believed that he could win the final victory. But even in the end, she still wouldn't marry him. And all of this was caused by this man named Yi Shiwen. If it wasn't for him, how could he have fallen to such a state? The fist intention in his hand condensed into a huge phantom of a phoenix. Compared to the lifelike phoenix just now, it seemed a bit illusory, but its power was a level higher. This phantom of the phoenix shrank in the void, and then instantly turned into an amazing fist intention of divine light. It distorted the vast sky and blasted towards Yi Shiwen's eyebrows. Bang! There was a huge roar. Yi Shiwen raised his hand, and the divine light fiercely blasted on his right palm. Puff! Endless blood splattered on Yi Shiwen's palm, and his flesh suddenly burst open. This wisp of divine light directly broke through the divinity on his palm and blasted into his body. His figure retreated a few steps, and only then did he barely manage to offset this terrible power. One could imagine how terrible the terrible power of this blow was. It was different from the previous attack that couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. This attack directly injured Yi Shiwen. It also made everyone finally realize that Yi Shiwen wasn't a god after all. He was still a human. It wasn't strange for him to be injured. It was just that Yi Shiwen's previous performance was too strong. However, although Yi Shiwen was repelled, his facial expression didn't change in the slightest. Instead, it became more and more indifferent. The wound on his hand also healed at an astonishing speed. The faint sound of Phoenix's cry could be heard in his body as it healed. "Go to hell! Go to hell! Why aren't you dead yet?" Feng Yuan continued to roar. "As long as you don't die, Meng Han won't give up. So, you can only die. You can only die." Feng Yuan continued to growl in a low voice, like an injured beast whose territory had been invaded. His eyes were blood red, and he stared at Yi Shiwen, and a powerful opportunity was locked on him. Chapter 1782. His fist pressure was incomparably terrifying, as if it could completely crush the entire void. "You want me to die? Interesting. I forgot to tell you, I'm an old Chinese medicine doctor. I specialize in curing all kinds of disobedience." Yi Shiwen shouted and stepped directly in Feng Yuan's direction. Countless golden waves appeared under his feet and penetrated the void. Everyone was shocked. Under Feng Yuan's continuous attacks, Yi Shiwen did not show the slightest sign of weakness. On the contrary, he continued to attack. Boom! 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 The collision between the two sides produced a horrifying energy frenzy in the void. These two people are only a few hundred years old. They're not even 1,000 years old, yet they've already grown to such an extent. I'm afraid that even the experts of the older generation can't possess such strength. If this continues, who can suppress them? A few hundred years old mysterious realm is considered a top figure no matter where. I originally thought that Feng Yuan was already extremely tyrannical, but I didn't expect that Yi Shiwen is not the slightest bit inferior. In fact, it feels like he is even stronger. Both of them have the potential to prove their Tao. In the future, they will either be crowned kings or become gods. They will both embark on an unprecedented path, specialize in curing all kinds of disobedience. How arrogant! At this time, Feng Yuan's face was sullen. He stepped forward, and endless flames began to condense on his fist. Even though he was very far away, he still blasted out a sky full of light, which turned into a fist principle. The fist fiercely fell on Yi Shiwen, and a huge hole was blasted in the void. Whether it's arrogance or not, you'll know once you try. Yi Shiwen sneered. Golden rays of light continuously appeared under his feet, drowning the sudden attack of the flames. Boom! Suddenly, the void crazily shattered. Countless flames boiled out of the chaos and instantly burned towards Yi Shiwen. In the void, the flames condensed into a huge phoenix. On the feathers, there were flowing lights, exuding a terrifying brilliance. Phoenix, he actually condensed a phoenix. Although it is clearly condensed from flames, it is simply lifelike. If it wasn't for the fact that there is no aura of a living creature, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to distinguish it at all. This incomparably huge phoenix's claws were like two huge pincers, and fiercely grabbed towards Yi Shiwen's direction. The sky turned into a sea of fire wherever it went. Moreover, it wasn't a simple sea of fire. On the contrary, it instantly turned into a domain of flames. As the phoenix flew past, it instantly formed a huge domain and directly shrouded Yi Shiwen. He wanted to bring Yi Shiwen into his domain and then kill him directly. Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. How could he not see it? For him, this was nothing at all. He took a step forward, clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, an endless fist intent condensed on his fist. The mighty coercion condensed in an instant and suddenly formed a vast universe. This universe, with Yi Shiwen as the center, directly expanded out as if a real universe was being born, and Yi Shiwen, who stood in the center of the universe, was the real god of the center of the universe, ruling the heavens, and no one could resist. Immediately afterward, the sea of fire and the flames collided fiercely, as if 2 vast worlds had collided together. It was extremely terrifying. At the place where the collision occurred, countless world rules instantly collapsed and engulfed each other. This was the collision of the 2 people's fist intent in the void. In the confrontation, both sides had already fought with real fire and did not hold back at all. It's useless. As I said, I specialize in all kinds of disobedience. Yi Shiwen's black hair flew up and danced wildly in the sky. His eyes became even more fierce. Yi Shiwen was calm and composed. He shouted loudly, and countless golden waves swept up under his feet, turning into golden swords, and fiercely slashed into the sea of fire. Hundreds and thousands of golden swords broke everything, and all the flames were annihilated by the sword aura, and were instantly cut into pieces. Then, at this time, these golden swords directly condensed in the void. An incomparably powerful sword pressure raged out, turning into a heavenly treasure sword, and then directly slashed towards the huge phoenix. At this time, the complexions of many of the lords of the major forces who were watching the battle instantly changed, and they couldn't believe their eyes as they looked at Yi Shiwen. Even the masters of Xian realm wouldn't be able to block such an attack, but Yi Shiwen was able to casually launch such an attack. Didn't it mean that his strength was far above the ordinary masters of Xian realm? It was no wonder that he had so much courage. He had dared to challenge the ancient Phoenix world, and had openly clamored to take away Huang Menghan. Without such strength to back him up, he wouldn't be able to do anything even if he was in the right. Moreover, in the opinion of most people, Yi Shiwen was far from being in the right. In fact, many king-ranked experts didn't even dare to open their eyes. Their eyes were firmly fixed on these 2 people. Whether it was Feng Yuan or Yi Shiwen, their offensive had great reference value for them. It would be of great benefit to them when they stepped into the profound realm. Profound realm experts were very rare. Therefore, a fight between profound realm experts was naturally even rarer. Many king-ranked experts hadn't even seen a fight between profound realm experts in their entire lives. Moreover, these two people were clearly peak experts who had already stepped into the initial profound life stage. This caused them to feel both envious and jealous. They were envious that they had already reached the profound life stage, which many people could only dream of reaching in their entire lives, at the mere age of a few hundred years. These two people were merely a few hundred years old, yet they had already stepped into the profound life stage at such a young age. On the other hand, they had already lived for thousands of years, yet they were still unable to step into the profound life stage. This also meant that it would be extremely difficult for them to step into the profound life stage in the future. All of them knew this in their hearts. Therefore, they had to grab hold of every possible opportunity and do their utmost to absorb the energy. They were not stupid. These thousands of years had not been spent in vain. Their foundations were incomparably deep. Unexpectedly, they were able to see through some tricks. Furthermore, there were even some people who had benefited greatly. If they wanted to break through to the profound life stage in the future, their chances of success would greatly increase. Many people were dumbfounded. The attack power was astonishing. This Yi Shiwen can really fight with Feng Yuan. Even some of the old antiques of the ancient Phoenix realm had a change of expression when they saw this scene. They had thought that Feng Yuan was invincible among the younger generation. Even if he wasn't invincible in the profound world battlefield, he would still be able to occupy a place. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would be able to fight Feng Yuan to a standstill? It was simply like a miracle. Specialized in dealing with all kinds of dissatisfaction? Interesting. Qin Lai drank a mouthful of wine and said with a beaming smile. He realized that his fellow clansman was becoming more and more interesting. Ever since this fellow clansman had appeared, he had repeatedly exceeded his expectations. He had never imagined that he would actually be able to step into the profound life stage in such a short period of time. Not only had he stepped into the profound life stage, but hadn't Hai Wuya also stepped into the profound life stage? Stepping into the profound life stage didn't mean that one could immediately be compared to those old fellows who had stepped into the profound life stage first. They had incomparably deep accumulations. Some of them had even stepped into the profound life stage for hundreds of years, or even thousands of years. They had suppressed their cultivation at the profound life stage and planned to break through to the next few realms in one fell swoop. Therefore, even though Hai Wuya had similarly stepped into the profound life stage and had been humiliated so miserably by Ao Shiba, he didn't dare to rashly find trouble with Ao Shiba, the son of the sea god. What a great reputation! However, to be able to step into the profound life stage at such a young age, which of them didn't have an extraordinary background? Which of them didn't have an extraordinary bloodline? Not to mention that Ao Shiba had the bloodline of the Golden Dragon clan. Even Hai Wuya himself had an extraordinary background. At this stage, it could be said that there were no longer any commoners. There were only nobles. Many people might seem to be very low-key and didn't know the identity of this person. However, once the name of their ancestor was mentioned, it would usually be famous and could shake the heavens. Although the identity of one's ancestor didn't represent one's current strength, the more glorious one's ancestor was, the more resources they would leave behind. It was far beyond the limits of what commoners could imagine. This was especially true for clans that had produced titled kings and emperors. They were extremely glorious and possessed wealth that ordinary people couldn't even imagine. What was the background of this Yi Shiwen? At the same time, many people were thinking the same thing as him. What exactly was Yi Shiwen's identity? Was he just a disciple of the Marquis clan? No matter how they looked at it, it didn't seem like it. The Yi clan had an illustrious reputation in the ancient desolation. However, in the eyes of these people, it was basically nothing. Titled Marquis? What did that count for? Only the forces established by titled kings would be able to enter their eyes. These peak experts often came from the bloodline of titled kings. For example, Feng Yuan. Although he was also from the Phoenix clan, there were countless bloodlines in the Phoenix clan. Not all of them had produced titled kings. And those bloodlines that had produced titled kings would naturally become direct descendants of the Phoenix clan. Naturally, they would also become large bloodlines that stood above everyone else. And Feng Yuan had come from one of these bloodlines. How could someone as amazing as Yi Shiwen come from such a mediocre clan? However, the corners of Qin Lai's mouth flashed with a somewhat self-deprecating smile. He muttered to himself, "It seems that I've really fallen into a demonic barrier." Who said that heroes must come from those peak forces? Those incomparably glorious forces today were established by many ancestors who were merely ordinary people in the past. I've really underestimated the heroes of the world. Chapter 1783. While everyone was discussing spiritedly, the battle between Yi Shiwen and Feng Yuan in the sky had already reached the point of perfection. Yi Shiwen casually attacked in the sky. Golden fist waves formed golden lightning that turned into universes that blotted out the sky and the earth as they bombarded Feng Yuan. Compared to Yi Shiwen, Feng Yuan was even more unrestrained. He directly ran amidst these golden waves and sharp swords. The Nanming Leaf fire that was protecting his body directly evaporated all the golden waves within a 10-meter radius. These golden waves were simply no match for him. They couldn't even get close to him. All the laws around him lost their effect. Only the law of fire could exist forever. No one could shake the power of the law of fire around him. "Break for me!" Feng Yuan shouted loudly. The flames on his body condensed, and he blasted out punch after punch. Each punch could blast out a huge fire phoenix that seemed to be able to crush the heavens. "Suppress everything for me!" Yi Shiwen didn't want to be outdone. He confronted Feng Yuan directly. His hands directly tore out endless golden light. Everything was completely torn apart. He forcibly tore open a path towards Feng Yuan. He was running amok like an overlord. His body carried a terrifying aura. Feng Yuan's fist momentum was unparalleled. However, Yi Shiwen's speed wasn't ordinary. He didn't hesitate at all and directly rushed in front of Feng Yuan. A huge golden hand flew out and turned into a huge golden cage on the spot, enveloping Feng Yuan. It was as if it wanted to seal the entire world. No one would be able to escape from its hand. It was extremely powerful. His golden hand transformed into a cage that suppressed everything in the blink of an eye. Heaven and earth were in front of this cage, and there was nothing they could do to resist it. At the same time, an incredible power surged out of him. What is that? Many tyrannical old antiques opened their magic eyes one after another and looked at the golden hand. They all discovered that this golden hand was extraordinary. It wasn't as simple as an ordinary golden hand. On the contrary, it contained a powerful force that suppressed everything. It seemed as if it wanted to suppress everything in the world. They opened their magic eyes and instantly saw through all illusions. At this moment, they clearly saw that this golden hand was formed by a huge seal character. This huge seal character formed a book of words that shone brightly in the sky. It suppressed all sorts of power. Everything, including laws and laws, was nothing in front of this seal character. What is that? He actually has a pseudo-Dao rune? Many people were instantly horrified. If Yi Shiwen being an ordinary expert of the profound life stage was not enough to cause them to be horrified, then the word seal had completely shocked everyone. How is this possible? Even many old antiques and old seniors that I know don't have this pseudo-Dao rune. How can a junior like him have it? He came from the ancient desolation. The ancient desolation used to be the demon realm many years ago. Have you all forgotten that the ancient desolation used to be extremely glorious for a period of time? It was the headquarters of the demon race. Who knows how many characters that shook the heavens came from there? Don't underestimate us, you bastard. At this moment, everyone in the ancient desolation felt proud and elated when they saw the shocked expressions of the crowd. The glory of the demon realm was something that had happened in the distant past. It was even something that had happened before the mythological era. Naturally, the events of that era had no deterrent effect on the people of the present. Even so, the demon realm had once been glorious. Perhaps the characters of that era had died one after another. However, the legacies that those characters had left behind had not been fully excavated even now. At this moment, they could finally proudly say, "You country bumpkins, have you really seen a tycoon?" Pseudo-Dao runes were extremely rare in many worlds. However, for the forces of the ancient desolation, who didn't have a few pseudo-Dao runes also existed in their forces. However, there weren't many of them. What were pseudo-Dao runes? They were the characters used by the characters that had truly confirmed the Dao. Their characters weren't ordinary characters, but they were the concentrated embodiment of the rules, laws, and comprehension of the characters. Although pseudo-Dao runes weren't as exaggerated as Dao runes, since they were called pseudo-Dao runes, they naturally possessed some of the supreme might of Dao runes. Ordinary people couldn't understand them. If someone could obtain a pseudo-Dao rune, even if they could only comprehend one word, they would be able to ascend and become a world-shaking expert. Those who could leave behind pseudo-Dao runes were all famous characters in the past. Naturally, it wouldn't be difficult to become a peerless powerhouse if one could comprehend the pseudo-Dao runes. To put it bluntly, Dao runes were the characters used by those who had confirmed the Dao to record their Dao. They weren't meant to be seen, but to be experienced with one's heart. Just from the number of pseudo-Dao runes in the major forces, one could see how glorious the demon realm was in the past. There were probably so many people who had confirmed the Dao that other worlds couldn't even catch up to. Thinking up to there, many people even had looks of greed in their eyes. It was a pseudo-Dao rune. If they could obtain it and comprehend it, they would at the very least become a peerless figure, a figure that could shake the heavens and earth. Yi Shiwen had used this seal character to suppress the yin-yang life and death diagram within his body. Not only the yin-yang life and death diagram, but also the demon seed within his body. It was also being suppressed by this seal character. Back then, there were these two scourges in Yi Shiwen's body, so it could be said that he didn't even have half of his combat power. Now, not only was the demon seed broken, but it had also become his nourishment, helping him to directly break through from the celestial realm to the king realm. After the battle in the Nirvana pool, the yin-yang life and death diagram in his body had been completely perfected, so there was no need to suppress it at all. His combat power was also completely liberated. This was the reason why he had such confidence. He hadn't tried a full-scale battle for a long time. Because of the existence of the demon seed and the yin-yang life and death diagram, he could almost only fight with his tail between his legs. It was unlike this time where he could fight to his heart's content. And his first real opponent after he was truly liberated was Feng Yuan. In the face of such a tyrannical figure, he could directly attack without any scruples. He didn't have to worry about anything. Yi Shiwen's word seal sealed everything. All the principles and rules stopped flowing in an instant and began to be isolated. The word seal transformed into a big hand and began to grab towards Feng Yuan at lightning speed. It seemed slow, but it was actually very fast. In fact, it was so fast that it tore the sky apart in an instant. However, at this time, just when everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was about to control everything and use the seal character to directly suppress Feng Yuan finally made his move. He suddenly opened his eyes and opened his mouth to shout, "Fire!" In the void, countless flames began to condense around his body, instantly forming a sea of fire. An ancient character slowly rose from these flames, carrying a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. In an instant, it blasted towards Yi Shiwen's seal character. Boom! Terrifying. This was a terrifying collision. Two ancient characters fiercely collided in the void. One was the seal character, and the other was the fire character. Both were terrifying ancient characters with great power. Both were condensed from the lifetime power of a senior before he passed away in meditation. It could be said to be earth-shattering. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that under the suppression of Yi Shiwen's seal character, Feng Yuan still had the strength to fight. He also had an ancient character on his body. In the eyes of these forces' big shots, they were extremely distressed. This was simply a reckless waste of natural resources. Whether it was the ancient Phoenix domain or the ancient desolate era, pseudo-Dao runes were everywhere. They were completely overflowing. Otherwise, why would they be given to the younger generation to use? In their world, the appearance of an existence that could condense pseudo-Dao runes was already an earth-shattering event. Even so, the Almighty who had the ability to condense pseudo-Dao runes might not be willing to condense pseudo-Dao runes so that the younger generation would benefit from it. Moreover, there was a high probability that they would fail. Therefore, pseudo-Dao runes were very rare in their eyes. Even the masters of the major forces like them had only seen pseudo-Dao runes. Now they could actually see the collision of pseudo-Dao runes. For them, this trip was absolutely not in vain. In fact, many people even sighed in their hearts. These two young juniors were so amazing. The new generation really surpassed the old. They were going to be slapped to death on the beach. Bang! That was a terrible collision. Whether it was the fire character or the seal character, both of them could be said to be extremely terrifying. The moment they collided with each other, they directly sublimated to the extreme, bursting out brilliant brilliance. It was an intense collision like a comet crashing into the earth. For a moment, the entire world seemed to be silent. Everyone couldn't hear anything. They could only see the collision of the two huge, ancient characters in the void between the heaven and the earth. The entire void collapsed silently, revealing a pitch-black chaos. Countless chaos poured out and fell down like clouds, smashing everything. This scene looked very terrifying. Everyone had already forgotten about everything. They were just staring at everything in front of them in a daze. The collision of the two ancient characters had attracted all their attention. Chapter 1784. This was a pure competition of the great Tao. Whether it was the word seal or the word fire, they were the lifetime understanding of the great Tao. Although the points of understanding were different, whether it was the word seal or the word fire, it was simply unattainable for them. It was a kind of realm, a realm that was far beyond everyone's understanding. Any word was worth studying for a lifetime, let alone a collision like this. Feng Yuan's expression was indifferent. His eyes were very indifferent. Yi Shiwen's reflection was reflected in his eyes. He said coldly, "It's useless. You can't be my opponent. Although I'm very surprised that you have such a pseudo-Dao rune, you can't be my opponent." The word fire is the essence of the five elements. It is one of the most powerful words in the world. It is the rule and also the law. It is not something that you can resist. Is that so? Yi Shiwen didn't have the slightest bit of hesitation. He once again rushed over to kill. He swung his fists like a huge millstone. Each of his fists was more than 1,000 caddies heavy. It was very terrifying. It was as if the stars of the universe had directly fallen to the ground. Even if it is the word fire, so what? Don't you understand? Each of the seniors who have reached this step is an earth-shattering existence. Whether it is the word fire or the word seal, there is no difference at all in our level. Do you think that your mastery of the word fire can surpass mine? Yi Shiwen sneered disdainfully. Boom! 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 In the void, the collision of the two ancient words in the void made everyone exclaim. They couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Many people who had bad intentions couldn't help but have some doubts at this time. In a collision of this level, even if they wanted to attack these ancient words, they wouldn't be able to withstand the attack of the ancient words. They would be completely obliterated. Feng Yuan's word fire could be said to have earth-shattering destructive power. The word fire originally represented destruction. Only by destroying everything could one be reborn. The word fire represented the meaning of destruction. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen's word seal was meant to seal this destructive power. Nothing in the world could escape from the word seal. It would be useless for anyone or any force to cause trouble under the influence of the word seal. On the contrary, it would be a ridiculous joke. One was doing his utmost to destroy, while the other was doing his utmost to restrain, not allowing him to destroy. This was a confrontation between two kinds of Daos. At the same time, it was also a confrontation between Yi Shiwen and Feng Yuan. As Yi Shiwen had said, those who could condense pseudo-Dao runes might be divided into strong and weak ones. However, for people at Yi Shiwen and Feng Yuan's level, there was no difference in strength. For them, the real deciding factor wasn't which of the two ancient characters was more powerful, but who had a better grasp of the ancient characters. Competing in mastery? You? How many years have you been cultivating? I've already obtained the word fire since hundreds of years ago. I've been studying it day and night. Do you think you can be compared to me? I'm from the Phoenix clan. The word fire is innately compatible with my fate. I've already refined it to the acme of perfection. Do you think you're my opponent? Ridiculous. Feng Yuan burst into loud laughter. His expression was ice cold, and his tone was harsh. He simply wanted to kill Yi Shiwen. He didn't want to give him any way out. What? From the looks of it, Yi Shiwen is in danger. I originally thought that he would be able to determine the outcome of this battle by using the word seal. Who would have thought that Feng Yuan also has an ancient character? Moreover, his mastery of it seems to be even more profound than Yi Shiwen's. These young people are really tyrannical and terrifying. I'm afraid that no one can truly know where their bottom line is until the very last moment. Yes, it's really tyrannical and terrifying. Yi Shiwen is also very tyrannical and can be considered as a Heaven's Pride expert. However, he ended up encountering Feng Yuan, who is even more tyrannical than him. Although I don't know what kind of fortuitous encounter Yi Shiwen had, the difference in their cultivation age is still obvious. I'm afraid that he won't be Feng Yuan's opponent. Everyone was once again pessimistic about Yi Shiwen. Indeed, compared to Feng Yuan's fire character, the seal character seemed to be inferior. Moreover, Feng Yuan might have mastered the fire character for a longer period of time than Yi Shiwen had cultivated. Most importantly, the Phoenix race was born with the attribute of fire. They had a unique advantage in refining the pseudo-Dao rune. Now, everything will end for me. Break for me, break for me, Feng Yuan roared. His loud roar drove the fire character and launched an earth-shattering attack towards the seal character. Rumble. Under the impact of the fire character, the huge seal that had transformed into a cage began to crack. It simply scared everyone to death. The fact that cracks had appeared on the ancient character was undoubtedly a huge blow to them. For them, the pseudo-Dao rune itself was a peerless divine object that was very rare to see. For them, the collision of two pseudo-Dao runes was something they had never seen before. They couldn't imagine what kind of scene it would be when one side cracked. It's useless. I've said it before. I specialize in curing all kinds of disobedience. Yi Shiwen sneered. His body continued to emit golden rays of light. The cracks that had appeared on the seal character were repaired bit by bit under the replenishment of the golden rays of light. So what if you've cultivated for a long period of time? How do you know that my comprehension is not as profound as yours just because I've cultivated for a short period of time? What a joke. I was able to enter the profound life realm in such a short period of time. Don't tell me you still don't understand. Time is like a fleeting cloud to me. Don't take it too seriously. Yi Shiwen fiercely clenched his steel teeth, and the aura on his body began to unceasingly spurt out. Moreover, it became more and more intense. Soon, a huge tornado formed around his body, and his entire body was wrapped in it. Suppress it, he shouted loudly. A huge hand directly slammed down on the spot. Rumble. A huge rumbling sound was heard. The huge hand directly slammed onto the seal character. The seal character seemed to have received a strong supplement. In an instant, a powerful light burst out from it and forcefully suppressed the attack of the fire character. Impossible. How is this possible? How can you understand the seal character to such an extent? Feng Yuan's eyes flashed with a look of disbelief. At this moment, he finally panicked a little. He had always thought that victory was within his grasp. In the end, he kept retreating under Yi Shiwen's continuous attacks. Perhaps Yi Shiwen wasn't as simple as he had imagined. Yi Shiwen only sneered and didn't answer. Perhaps Feng Yuan would never have imagined that there was a mysterious space within Yi Shiwen's body that could help him deduce various martial arts principles. Even this kind of pseudo-Dao rune would be extremely difficult for ordinary people to comprehend. However, it was nothing for Yi Shiwen. The only thing he needed was endless energy. As for Yi Shiwen, who had just extorted a large sum of money from the major forces of the ancient wilderness and inherited the Demon King's treasure, it could be said that he didn't lack energy at all. Therefore, even if he hadn't cultivated for a long time, his understanding of the seal character wasn't as shallow as everyone thought. In fact, it might have even reached a shocking level. What's so strange about that? Age means nothing to me. Yi Shiwen faintly said, "It feels good to fight with all my strength. I haven't fought with all my strength for a very long time. Now, I will let you see the real gap between you and me. I will also let you understand why Menghan chose me and not you." Yi Shiwen's imposing aura became increasingly tyrannical. He wanted to prove to everyone that Hua Menghan hadn't misjudged him. Moreover, he wasn't as unbearable as everyone thought he was. He wanted to prove that he was worthy of Hua Menghan, even if she was the legendary Heavenly Phoenix Girl. At the same time, he wanted to dispel the ambitions of those who harbored evil intentions. Only with great strength could one truly suppress everything. Under Yi Shiwen's control, his seal character began to condense into a phantom in the void. This was the phantom of the senior who had condensed the seal character. It was a peerless figure that seemed capable of shattering the heavens. The illusory figure continued to bombard the fire character. Under the pressure of the seal character, the fire character began to sublimate. The origin spirit within it also awakened, turning into an incomparably gigantic god of flames. A single punch and a kick could shatter the void. Under Yi Shiwen's control, the peerless figure gradually transformed into Yi Shiwen's appearance. It was exceptionally magical. He kept swinging his huge fists, which were like small mountains bombarding Feng Yuan. Bang! 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 The flame giant wasn't Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. Under the constant bombardment of the seal powerhouse controlled by Yi Shiwen, the flame giant was constantly retreating in the void. It didn't give the opponent any time to prepare. It was instantly defeated like a landslide. In just a moment, it had been directly suppressed for thousands of meters. Everyone was dumbfounded as they watched this scene. Finally, the seal character master found a flaw in the constant bombardment. His fist blasted out endless rays of light and fiercely blasted into the chest of the flame giant. Crack! 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 Everyone only heard a loud cracking sound. Then, they saw that the flame giant had completely collapsed in front of everyone's eyes. It was as if a small mountain had collapsed in front of them. After the seal character master defeated the flame giant, he didn't stop and immediately grabbed Feng Yuan with the power of thunder. Chapter 1785. Yi Shiwen's speed was extremely fast. He directly attacked Feng Yuan without any scruples. Stop! A tyrannical aura came from the void at this time, and Yi Shiwen's sealed powerhouse was smashed to pieces on the spot. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. A cold light flickered in his eyes as he looked at the void. The yin-yang life and death diagram inside his body began to rotate unceasingly. It was exuding the power of life and death. A tyrannical figure descended from the sky at this time. Phoenix King. Even the Phoenix King has been alarmed. Someone immediately recognized this person. He was the king of the entire ancient Phoenix world, the Phoenix King. He was the de facto ruler of the ancient Phoenix world. Yi Shiwen fixed his eyes on him and saw that he was a young man. He had a fair complexion and was extremely handsome. He was dressed in a royal robe. He looked incomparably majestic. His every move exuded a great majesty. This was the so-called "don't get angry." Yi Shiwen, enough! The Phoenix King glanced at Yi Shiwen and said. It seemed that he wasn't unfamiliar with Yi Shiwen. In fact, he could even call out Yi Shiwen's name. He has already been defeated. Do you still want to make a scene? Phoenix King, I don't want to make a scene. I know that the ancient Phoenix world has a profound heritage. I've also heard that you have taken care of Menghan here. However, Menghan has been forced to marry this guy. Please forgive me. I can't let this go. I have come here today to take her away. If you want me to give up, then you'll have to step over my dead body. Yi Shiwen replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. His expression didn't change even in the face of a character like the Phoenix King. He could feel that the strength of the Phoenix King was unfathomable. However, it wasn't as if he didn't have a trump card, so he could still put up a fight. In short, he absolutely couldn't watch Hua Menghan being forced to marry someone else. "You're really stubborn," the Phoenix King sighed and said. His tone was no longer cold. However, there was some helplessness in it. "Today's matter is over. Don't make a scene. Menghan has already escaped. You won't get any results even if you continue to make a scene." What? Yi Shiwen hadn't yet reacted to Phoenix King's words, but the people below were already in a complete mess. What did he mean by Hua Menghan had already escaped? This wedding was originally held for Feng Yuan and Hua Menghan. But now, the bridegroom had been beaten to such a sorry state, and the bride had simply run away. What was going on? What kind of joke was this? Everyone's first reaction was that the Phoenix King was joking. Then, their second reaction was that the Phoenix King was deceiving Yi Shiwen in order to send him away. However, they soon discovered that the complexion of the Phoenix King was very dignified. It didn't seem like he was joking at all. They couldn't help but be startled. Could it be that Hua Menghan had truly escaped? If that was the case, then this matter would become very serious. Moreover, no one had been able to stop Yi Shiwen when he had forced his way into the wedding. The reputation of the ancient Phoenix world could be considered to have been thoroughly destroyed. Their prestige was no longer there. Perhaps it would be very difficult for people to believe that the ancient Phoenix world was invincible in the future. Moreover, the internal contradictions of the ancient Phoenix world had also been exposed. Sure enough, the rumors were saying that Hua Menghan wasn't willing to marry Feng Yuan. All of this was just a political show. Who would have thought that this show would turn out like this? Everyone looked at the Phoenix King. They didn't know how he was going to deal with this situation. Even Yi Shiwen was among them. He hadn't expected that there would be such a twist in the end. Hua Menghan had unexpectedly left in advance. This had left him dumbfounded. He couldn't judge whether the Phoenix King's words were true or not. However, he also knew that the Phoenix King wouldn't joke about this matter. After all, the ancient Phoenix world wouldn't just lose a lot of face if this matter were to be exposed in the future. Feng Yuan was completely disheartened compared to the shocked Yi Shiwen. He hadn't expected that Hua Menghan would refuse to accept him even after he had been defeated by Yi Shiwen. He hadn't expected that Hua Menghan would still refuse to accept him even after he had done so much. She had even decided to run away from the wedding. He was no longer in the mood to stay here. So, he walked towards the villa step by step. The originally festive villa looked very ironic at this time. It was truly ridiculous. What? Hua Menghan has escaped? Damn it. How could she do such a thing? Does she know that our ancient Phoenix world will become the laughingstock of the entire heavens? Damn it. I've said that those who aren't of our race will have a different heart. This Hua Menghan can't be nurtured. After all, she's also a human being. She's not a member of our Phoenix race. Unlike Feng Yuan, who had lost his soul, many old antiques suddenly became furious. For them, the face of the ancient Phoenix world was more important than anything else. There was nothing they couldn't sacrifice for the sake of the ancient Phoenix world. Hua Menghan had been forced to marry Feng Yuan by these people. Hua Menghan had escaped at this time, and the ancient Phoenix world would inevitably become a laughingstock for some time. This was something they couldn't tolerate. "You big liar. Hurry up. Sister Hua has escaped." Yi Shiwen received the message from that little girl at this time. He immediately understood that this matter was true. Hua Menghan had escaped. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. Why would he come to kill her if that was the case? "I'll take my leave if that's the case." Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said, "You want to leave? Where do you think you're going?" An ice-cold shout came from the inside of the villa at this time. An ice-cold big hand rushed towards Yi Shiwen to grab him. Then, it ferociously slammed down with the momentum of Mount Tai. Bang! An incomparably loud sound was heard. A dreadful collision occurred, and the void collapsed. It was an extremely dreadful scene. This is the old antiques of the ancient Phoenix world have made their move. I'm afraid that this matter is going to get out of hand. There are many experts hiding in the ancient Phoenix world. However, they haven't made their move yet. It's because they're giving face to King Tai Tsong. They don't want to fall out with a king-level expert. However, Yi Shiwen and Hua Menghan have made the ancient Phoenix world lose a lot of face. So, it would be strange if they could endure this. I'm afraid that Yi Shiwen won't be able to escape this calamity this time. Everyone suddenly burst into an uproar, and they started to discuss spiritedly. What? Yi Shiwen is all right? Quickly look, quickly look! Someone suddenly screamed. Then, everyone quickly looked towards the sky. Sure enough, the smoke and dust dispersed in all directions. Yi Shiwen, who was in the center, wasn't injured at all. Above his head, a scroll unfolded and continuously hovered above his head. The power of life and death hung down, protecting him within it. The attack just now had been blocked by the yin-yang life and death diagram. What kind of divine tool is that? How can it be so powerful? It even has some demonic aura. Could it be a demonic tool? Suddenly, many people were shocked. Everyone could see that Yi Shiwen had relied on this divine tool to block the attack and survive. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to do it. Only the big shots of the ancient Baron's continent could roughly see some clues. That power of life and death. Could it be the yin-yang life and death diagram? It must be. Only the legendary yin-yang life and death diagram could possibly have such power. The legendary yin-yang life and death diagram is a Dao tool. Even if Yi Shiwen couldn't exert much of its power, even a small portion of its power would be enough for him to protect himself. Not only were everyone shocked, but the old antique who had attacked was also stunned. Then, he became even more furious. His figure directly rushed out. It was a tall old man in a plain robe. At this moment, he stared at Yi Shiwen with an ashen face. So, you don't put our ancient Phoenix realm in your eyes because you have such a divine tool? Arrogant, despotic, and insolent. The old antique's voice trembled with anger. He couldn't help but be agitated because he was the ancestor of Feng Yuan's bloodline. All of this was orchestrated by him. However, in the end, it was completely destroyed by Yi Shiwen. Now, Hua Menghan had escaped. Although the ancient Phoenix realm had lost face, their bloodline's reputation in the ancient Phoenix realm had also plummeted. They had put in so much effort, but it was all for someone else. How could he not be angry? It was simply a bolt from the blue. I'm arrogant, despotic, and insolent? How could this have happened if you hadn't forced Menghan to marry Feng Yuan? Yi Shiwen sneered. He didn't yield even a little bit. The yin-yang life and death diagram above his head was constantly rotating and had completely protected him. That has nothing to do with you. That's our ancient Phoenix realm's internal affair. How can we allow outsiders like you to meddle in it? Do you think that you can act so unscrupulously because you have King Taizong's support? Moreover, Hua Menghan has consumed so many of our resources. I don't know how many heavenly treasures we have spent on her. Now we're just making her get married. What's so excessive about that? The old antique angrily looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "Who asked you to spend heavenly treasures on her? That's ridiculous. You're saying that we're begging you to nurture her. Did you ever think about whether she was willing or not when you forcibly took her away?" Yi Shiwen coldly said, "Now, you're asking for repayment? She's a direct descendant of the heavenly Phoenix bloodline. So, she naturally has the obligation to contribute to the ancient Phoenix realm. This is determined by her bloodline." The old antique stared at Yi Shiwen and said, "That's right. You don't really care about what she thinks. She's just a tool for you. So, there's no need for her to talk nonsense with you." Yi Shiwen replied without any trace of politeness. "Don't speak so glibly. I'll take you down first if that's the case. I don't believe that Hua Menghan won't come back obediently while you're in our hands." Chapter 1786. Don't flatter me. In that case, I will take you down first. I don't believe that Hua Menghan won't come back obediently while you are in our hands. This old antique absolutely couldn't accept the fact that Hua Menghan had escaped. Now that Hua Menghan had escaped, he also knew that this matter wasn't that simple. However, he believed that Hua Menghan had dared to escape the marriage for Yi Shiwen. So, as long as he could control Yi Shiwen, wouldn't she come back obediently? Die! He roared and directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen with a monstrous, imposing manner. He wanted to kill Yi Shiwen. A wisp of chaotic aura dispersed from his body in all directions. It was mysterious and powerful. Bang! The old antique directly blasted a fist. It carried a monstrous aura and swept over like a mountain range. It contained a world-destroying fluctuation. The void was completely shattered and formed a huge crack. It then fiercely bombarded towards Yi Shiwen. Crash! An incomparably powerful astral wind was formed and swept in all directions. This was the true power of a mysterious realm expert. Everyone was shocked, especially the big shots of various worlds. They were undoubtedly stunned. The strength of this old antique was tyrannical to a terrifying extent. The yin-yang life and death diagram above Yi Shiwen's head automatically flew out and directly swept out the yin and yang energies in the void. This represented the power of life and death. It directly wreaked havoc in the sky and issued an immeasurable shock wave which directly shook the sky. Bang! The yin-yang life and death diagram fiercely collided with this dreadful energy. With a rumbling sound, the void completely collapsed. Phoenix King just quietly watched from the side. He didn't have any intention of intervening in this fight. He didn't have any intention of helping the old antique either. In the eyes of many people, this meant that the Southern Ming Empire was here. Thump, thump, thump. Yi Shiwen continuously retreated several steps while the old antique's body slightly swayed. It was obvious that the winner between the two sides had been decided. However, everyone didn't think so. This old antique had been cultivating for many years while Yi Shiwen had only been cultivating for a few years. Even if Yi Shiwen relied on the power of the yin-yang life and death diagram to contend with him, it was still a commendable achievement for everyone. Therefore, they would also want to try if they were in his place. It's useless. Do you think you can contend against me by relying on external strength? The old man sneered and blasted a punch towards Yi Shiwen. His punch crushed the heavens, revealing its sharpness and murderous intention. Everyone was incomparably shocked. Feng Yuan's ultimate backer and the strength of the old ancestor had been completely revealed at this time. His combat strength was far beyond Yi Shiwen's. What do you mean by external force or internal force? As long as you can defeat your opponent, that's enough. You have lived for so long. Don't tell me you still don't understand this truth? Yi Shiwen sneered and said. He took a step forward, and the aura on his body rose again. It was as if he hadn't used all his strength just now, and it burst forth to the extreme. The void suddenly shook, and endless murderous intent began to splatter. Is he really just an early profound life stage practitioner? Many people looked at him in shock, not daring to believe it at all. You've forced her to this extent for your own selfish interests. Let me do what she didn't do, Yi Shiwen coldly said. He didn't know how Hua Menghan had been living all these years. However, he thought that she must have been living in an unfamiliar environment. He didn't have this ability in the past, and could only watch helplessly as she was taken away. However, things were different now. What did you say? The old man coldly looked at Yi Shiwen. The anger in his heart hadn't subsided yet. He was going to become a laughingstock, and all of this was caused by Yi Shiwen. He couldn't wait to punch Yi Shiwen to death. As for Yi Shiwen's threat, he simply didn't take it to heart. Yi Shiwen was still far from being comparable to him. I think you've really lost your mind. You've gone completely crazy all of a sudden. The old man sneered and blasted a punch. For a moment, the sun and moon lost their luster, and the sky was filled with a sea of fire. This move was exactly the same as Feng Yuan's. However, compared to Feng Yuan, this old man's skill was much more profound. He could even split the sky with a punch. Boom! The fist pressures seemed to have come from the ancient times and directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. It was going to blow Yi Shiwen up with one punch. However, at this moment, a shocking blade light directly slashed out from the void. It tore the void apart and shattered everything. The shocking blade light slashed down onto the old fogey's fist. Poochie! Blood sprayed out in all directions as a huge gash opened up on the old antique's fist. Even his bones were shattered. Ah! This antique kept screaming as he retreated. His eyes were fixed on Yi Shiwen. It seemed as if he was looking at something inconceivable. The void had completely collapsed in front of him and formed a huge space storm. Everyone opened their magic eyes one after another. Suddenly, they only saw Yi Shiwen dragging a long saber in his hand, exuding a terrifying light. His eyes were cold and ruthless, and a terrifying blade aura raged around his body. Everyone who saw this had goosebumps. Is this just a warrior in the initial profound life realm? How many amazing magic tools does he have? At this time, everyone was already a little desperate. Previously, it was the pseudo-Dao rune, then the yin-yang life and death diagram, and now this peerless murderous saber. Such a peerless murderous weapon was an unattainable existence even in their eyes. It was not something that ordinary people could possess. However, Yi Shiwen's magical tools kept popping up one after another. Was it because they were too poor? Or was it because there were too many magical tools of this level everywhere? Even Phoenix King was looking at Yi Shiwen at this time. The emergence immortal exterminating saber in his hand contained a terrifying energy. Even he could feel that it was abnormally terrifying. In his body, there was a terrifying power stirring. It was a magic tool. Under the influence of the emergence immortal exterminating saber's aura, it was actually about to awaken. Although it was immediately suppressed by him, it was still enough to make him abnormally shocked. One had to know that with the quality of the magic tool in his body, an ordinary magic tool would not be able to cause him to counterattack at all, let alone awaken it. This was enough to show that the things in Yi Shiwen's hand were not ordinary. And at this time, Yi Shiwen finally directly attacked. The emergence immortal exterminating saber in his hand directly spat out a shocking blade aura. It was like a falling galaxy hanging from the 9 heavens, directly slashing in the direction of the old antique. The old antique retreated repeatedly. He did not care about the injury on his hand, and repeatedly blasted out fist radiance that filled the sky, wanting to block this shocking blade aura. Boom! An incomparably loud sound was heard, and then the blade aura directly cut through the fist radiance. The void was completely cut, and then the blade aura directly fell on the old antique's arm. The old antique did not even have time to react or dodge, and was directly hit. Bang! With a loud sound, the old antique's arm directly exploded on the spot, turning into a sky full of blood mist. Ah! The old man clutched his severed arm and screamed unceasingly. His eyes fiercely stared at Yi Shiwen. He was startled and frightened. He didn't dare to imagine that he would be tricked by someone. Moreover, he had never thought that he would be tricked by someone with a dreadful divine tool. If it were not for that peerless ominous saber, Yi Shiwen would definitely not be his match. Even with the protection of the yin-yang life and death diagram, Yi Shiwen would definitely not be his match. He was very confident about this, but there were no ifs in this world. You? The old antique glared fiercely at Yi Shiwen. Compared to what you did to Meng Han, I only collected some interest. If I find out that you are still targeting Meng Han, then it will not be as simple as losing an arm. Yi Shiwen said coldly. We, the ancient human race, hope to cooperate with the ancient Phoenix realm, but we will definitely not do it in such a humble way. Then, I will take my leave, Yi Shiwen said to the Phoenix King, and then directly turned into a streamer, disappearing into the horizon. Everyone present on the scene was completely stunned. Obviously, they hadn't expected that the situation would end up like this. No one came out to stop Yi Shiwen. After all, even that antique wasn't a match for him. His arm had been chopped off. So, they were completely frightened. Therefore, nobody came out to stop Yi Shiwen. After a long time, everyone finally came back to their senses. How can this Yi Shiwen be so strong? It's impossible. This was especially true for the people from the ancient desolation. They were incomparably shocked at this moment. They suddenly thought of something. If Yi Shiwen was this powerful, then ordinary experts at the initial stage of the profound life realm would not be his match. Even without the support of Tsang Wang, he had already grown to a sufficiently tyrannical degree. They had to quickly think of a way to let the people in their respective forces know that they should not attempt to provoke the human race in the future. No matter how much the human race had declined, as long as Yi Shiwen and King Taizong were still around, then the human race would still not be an opponent that could be provoked. Even if Yi Shiwen was the only one left, it would still be the same. If they did not have the confidence to kill Yi Shiwen in one strike, then it was best not to casually make a move, so as to avoid attracting Yi Shiwen's thunderous revenge. Yi Shiwen was an existence that had defeated 3 clans in a single night. If someone said that he did not dare to make a move, then even they would not believe such a thing. At this moment, there was only one feeling in their hearts, and that was that the ancient human race was going to change. Chapter 1787. This seemed so unbelievable. After all, Yi Shiwen was only one person, yet he made them feel as if the ancient desolation was about to change. However, this wasn't a joke for them. In fact, it could be said that Yi Shiwen's deterrence was even greater than that of King Taizong to them. There was no other reason. Although King Taizong was powerful, it was obvious that he couldn't act at any time. In fact, he might even be held back by some powerful existence. Otherwise, King Taizong alone would be enough to annihilate the invading army of the demon race. Numbers were no longer important to experts at King Taizong's level. Moreover, there was a heaven and earth gap between the demon race and the king-level powerhouses. They were like countless ants. As long as they were careful, it would be difficult to pose a threat to them. Therefore, everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they thought of this. However, Yi Shiwen was different. He didn't have the same restrictions as King Taizong. He could attack at will. Moreover, he was an expert at the initial stage of the profound life realm who possessed terrifying strength. Coupled with the magic tools in his hands, no one knew the extent of his true strength. People like that were the most terrifying. At the very least, they were no longer a match for him. Only the old-timers of their clan, or the primeval beasts, would be able to fight him. Only then would they have a chance. While the big shots of the ancient desolation were discussing, the Phoenix King also reacted. However, he did not feel annoyed. On the contrary, he only had a funny expression on his face. This kid has really been deceived by him. He said it in such a dignified manner. In fact, I'm afraid he has no strength to fight anymore. Although I don't know what level that peerless ominous saber is, I think it can't continuously unleash that kind of saber aura. Otherwise, he wouldn't even need to escape. I don't know if this is the right thing to do. The Phoenix King sighed. In fact, he had deliberately indulged Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, how could Yi Shiwen have the ability to act so presumptuously in the ancient Phoenix world? However, he hadn't expected that Yi Shiwen would be so ferocious. In fact, Yi Shiwen had completely surpassed his imagination and control. It was somewhat beyond her expectations. However, she had no choice but to rely on Yi Shiwen's strength to complete this task. Even as the Phoenix King, it was impossible for her to decide everything on her own. Phoenix King silently calculated in her heart and soon guessed Yi Shiwen's situation. Just as he had expected, Yi Shiwen really didn't have the power to fight again at this time. Just 2 blade attacks had almost absorbed all the Jin Yuan in his body. He had already stepped into the profound life realm, and his strength had increased tremendously. His control over the emergence immortal exterminating saber had also reached an unprecedented level. However, the emergence immortal exterminating saber was like a bottomless pit. Even though he had stepped into the profound life realm, he still had no way of fully controlling the emergence immortal exterminating saber. He was still unable to unleash the true power of the emergence immortal exterminating saber. Just 2 slashes had almost absorbed all the real vitality in his body. It was similar to the previous situation. However, in comparison, the same 2 slashes had undergone an earth-shattering change. It was completely different from before. If it was before, even if he unleashed 2 more slashes, he wouldn't be able to do anything to that old antique. He directly rode on the escape light and continuously recovered the exhausted real vitality. Then, he continuously escaped towards the exit. Since Hua Minghan had already escaped from the wedding, there was no point in continuing to stay. At the same time, he was secretly shocked. The foundation of the ancient Phoenix realm was much more profound than he had imagined. During the Desolate Era, even the royal families only had a profound life realm expert. Within the nine-headed fierce beast clan, there was a profound life realm expert. However, that expert had been eliminated by King Taitsong at lightning speed. That expert hadn't been able to display his true strength at all. Otherwise, he would have been severely injured and had to escape in a sorry state. These were merely ordinary profound life stage experts. There was no need to even mention those who were the cream of the crop. Compared to the ancient desolation, the ancient Phoenix realm seemed to be stronger. Their foundation was also deeper. It might be due to the fact that the ancient desolation was now fragmented, so they couldn't truly inherit all the resources. However, even so, Yi Shiwen had discovered a problem after he had seen the experts of the ancient Phoenix realm and the other worlds. No matter how few experts there were in the ancient desolation, it was impossible for there to be so few of them. Could it be that he hadn't reached the corresponding level, so he didn't know about them? This wasn't impossible. For Yi Shiwen, who was only in the heaven realm, it was simply impossible for him to come into contact with a circle of profound life realm experts. In fact, they were simply mythical existences to him. They were aloof and remote like dust. Otherwise, how could he have the qualifications to join them? However, it was different now. Yi Shiwen's horizons had suddenly widened after he had stepped into the profound life realm. It was as if he had suddenly broadened his horizons and had undergone tremendous changes in his nature. Yi Shiwen quickened his pace as he thought of this. If there were really many profound life realm experts in the ancient desolation, then he would have to pay more attention to them. Moreover, Hua Minghan had already escaped from the wedding. It was impossible to bring her back. In fact, he didn't even know where she had gone. It would take a very long time to find her. There was also Yi Qianqian. Yi Qianqian's figure inexplicably flashed in Yi Shiwen's mind. Slowly, it became clearer and clearer. He lightly sighed. No matter what he had to do now was to make a name for himself in the world. Sometimes making a name for himself in the world was also the best way to report his safety. He had disappeared for 100 years like he had previously. Perhaps everyone would be worried to death. Yi Shiwen's speed was extremely fast. He had already passed through the space channel in less than half a day's time. The news hadn't reached here yet. Therefore, even though the people guarding the channel were very curious as to why Yi Shiwen had appeared at this time, they didn't stop him. Instead, they allowed him to pass. More importantly, they could clearly feel that a dreadful aura was lingering around Yi Shiwen's body. It was no longer the same as it had been when he had just entered the ancient Phoenix world. Their hearts were palpitating just by looking at him from afar. So, how could they have the courage to stop him at this time? Whoosh! The space and the void distorted violently in the ancient wilderness. Then, a figure jumped out of the distorted space. The space was directly torn apart on the spot. This figure had just appeared for a short while. His hands directly tore open countless golden lights again. The space was once again shattered. Then his figure jumped into it again. He was already thousands of miles away when he reappeared. For the current Yi Shiwen, it wasn't difficult to directly tear open the space to hurry on his journey. Although it was easy for the opponent to directly destroy the space when he was fighting against them, causing the space to collapse and die, it was still a very good method when he was hurrying on his journey. He was extremely fast. Yi Shiwen had already returned to Mount Qi in the ancient wilderness in less than half a day's time. This place had now become the base camp of the human clan. Countless experts of the human clan were hiding here. This was also the only territory of the human clan that was still completely under the control of the human clan. It was also the only place that the human clan had the ability to protect. However, when he had just approached Mount Qi, Yi Shiwen immediately felt a powerful pressure crushing down on Mount Qi. He immediately reacted. Profound life realm. It's a profound life realm expert. Moreover, it's a profound life realm expert belonging to the human clan. How is this possible? How can there still be a profound life realm expert in the human clan? Yi Shiwen was immediately shocked. There were indeed profound life realm experts in the human clan's royal court. However, After the royal court was breached, all of those profound life realm experts were brutally massacred. All of them died, and those old seniors could no longer be seen. However, for a very long time, everyone didn't pay much attention to them. That was because at that time, there wasn't even a single king grade expert, let alone a profound life realm expert. The existence of profound life realm experts was still a mythical level for ordinary living beings in the ancient wilderness. Many people might not even have heard of profound life realm experts in their entire lives, let alone seeing one. Therefore, to the human clan at that time, the appearance of a king-grade expert was the best thing that could boost their morale. A king-grade expert could raise the morale of the people even more significantly than a profound life realm expert. The reason why Yi Shiwen was able to become famous in the ancient wilderness in such a short period of time was not unrelated to this mentality. Some of the higher-ups were aware of the existence of profound life realm experts. They naturally knew that a profound life realm expert was needed to truly suppress the human clan. However, no matter how they searched, there didn't seem to be any profound life realm experts of the human clan in the ancient wilderness. The profound life realm experts of other races that were on good terms with the human clan were also unwilling to participate at this time. They would become the target of public criticism and would become the focus of the demon clan's attacks. Therefore, the higher-ups of the human clan could be said to have found nothing. Under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen was able to make a name for himself in one fell swoop and become a great figure whose name shook the world. Yi Shiwen was also very clear about the secret behind this. So, who exactly was the owner of the pressure crushing down on Mount Qi now? He looked over. Many living beings and commoners in the Mount Qi region were already shivering and kneeling on the ground at the feet of a profound life realm expert. In the end, who could it be? Furthermore, for him to release his aura so unscrupulously, I'm afraid he doesn't have good intentions. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. Chapter 1788. He felt a little strange. It wasn't that the human clan didn't have profound life realm experts, but those experts had all died in the imperial court. Unlike other races, the human clan was in a state of great unity. It was once unified by several human kings, so most of the experts were also concentrated in the imperial court. With the fall of the imperial court, these experts had all died in the imperial court. After that, Yi Shiwen hadn't seen any profound life realm experts. This kind of aura could only belong to a human clan expert. But how could a human clan expert be so presumptuous in Mount Qi? Mount Qi was a place of prosperity for the human clan, so it had an extraordinary significance. Even before the imperial court had fallen, there were still many experts. Mount Qi was a place of prosperity for the human clan, and there were also several noble and royal clans overseeing it. It wasn't a place where ordinary people would dare to be presumptuous, even if it was a profound realm expert. Thinking of this, he didn't have the mood to continue delaying and quickly flew to Mount Qi. I will ask you one last time, when will you hand over Yi Shiwen? Our Wang family has been loyal to the human clan for generations. For the human clan, this old man personally went to the Xian world and struggled in the Xian world. In the end, is this how you treat the descendants of meritorious officials? How dare you destroy the orthodoxy of our Wang family? Unforgivable, unforgivable. A cold voice came from Mount Qi. It was the ice-cold voice of a middle-aged man. As he spoke, his tone became increasingly cold, and his imposing aura also became more and more powerful. At this time, above the entire Mount Qi, three figures were coldly standing above the Yi family. The main pressure was directed towards the Yi family. The person in the lead looked to be about 35 or 36 years old. His eyes were bright, and he seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life. But at this time, there was an unusually cold expression on his face. His robe fluttered in the wind along with his anger, and he was full of imposing aura. And behind him followed a man and a woman. The man was about 40 years old, and he had a middle-aged appearance. His aura was even more powerful than that of the man, and he was extremely overbearing. As for the woman, she looked to be around 30 years old. Her skin was fair, and she was beautiful. However, her expression was cold as she looked in the direction of the Yi clan with disdain. Brother, I don't think you need to say anything to them. Since that Yi Shiwen dared to destroy your orthodoxy, then it's very simple. You should also destroy the orthodoxy of Yi clan. Let him be thoroughly destroyed. It can be regarded as an eye for an eye. It's very fair. At that moment, the man in his 40s spoke with a mocking expression on his face. It was as if he was talking about slaughtering a bunch of ants and they didn't care about them at all. Apart from Yi Shiwen, Yi Fan was the only king-level expert in front of them. He was tenaciously standing in the void. His forehead was slightly sweating, as if he was enduring great pain. The aura of the man, surnamed Wang, was mainly suppressing him. Wang Chong, I respect you for your contributions to the human clan. You were a famous figure in the past, and you were even the patriarch of the Wang clan. However, this is Qi Mountain. It's not a place where you can do evil. Yi Fan gritted his teeth and said with great difficulty. For him, as a king-level expert, it was still very difficult for him to fight against a profound realm expert, even if it was just his aura. Do evil? The Wang family has contributed so much to the human race for so many years. But it was destroyed just like that. You are simply treason. You want to rebel against the human race. If I can't kill the Yi Shiwen today, how can I have the face to see the ancestors of the Wang family? Yi Shiwen's expression turned solemn as he looked at Yi Shiwen. How can I do evil? The man surnamed Wang Chong, said through gritted teeth. When he thought about the news of the Wang clan's destruction, he almost cried tears of blood. Blood flowed from his eyes, and his heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. He had never thought that one day, the Wang clan would be destroyed. It was like a bolt from the blue, especially when he was fighting in the Xian world. Wang Chong, how many times do I have to say this? I originally didn't want to shed all pretense of cordiality with you, but the Wang clan betrayed the human clan and was controlled by the demon clan. They opened the defensive line and made the demon clan contribute to the royal court. You are also the patriarch of the Wang clan and also a marquis of the royal court. I think you should understand what this means to the human clan. If it weren't for Yi Shiwen, I'm afraid that the human clan would be in danger of extinction. Just based on this, the Wang clan's destruction is not wrong at all. Many people even hate them to the bone and want to skin them alive. Yi Fan said coldly, not showing the slightest mercy. Facing this senior of the Wang clan who had been pestering him endlessly, he was completely enraged. I don't care about the Wang clan's betrayal of the human clan, but even so, it's not up to that brat called Yi Shiwen to teach them a lesson. Today, I want him dead, and no one can protect him. Wang Chong said coldly. As the patriarch of the Wang clan, how could he not know that doing this was simply a heinous crime? If it were someone else, he would have also shouted for them to be killed. But no matter what, he could not accept the Wang clan's destruction. Moreover, he had already forgotten all these years of fighting in the Xian world. The righteousness of the human clan and the supremacy of the human clan had long since faded from his mind. What was truly important to him was the elusive Tao of eternal life. Wang Chong, since that's the case, it doesn't make any sense. The Wang clan has already betrayed the human clan, so it's only natural that they should be exterminated. Countless people have lost their families because of their betrayal, yet you can't distinguish between right and wrong. What difference is there between you and those Wang clan members who have submitted to the demon race? If you plan on continuing to pester us endlessly, then we can only fight to the death. Yi Fan said through clenched teeth. That's right, Wang Chong. Do you still remember this old man? Back then, you were a hero of your generation, but now, for the sake of the Wang clan, you want us humans to cut off our own arms and legs? You've already fallen. At this time, an old man leaped out of Mount Qi. He was a peak celestial expert, someone from the same generation as Wang Chong. But back then, Wang Chong had already been a hero whose name had shaken the world. Later on, he had even entered the Xian world. The people of the present might not know much about Wang Chong's past, but it was still vivid in their minds. After all, that was their era, their youth. He trembled as he looked at Wang Chong. His many years of fighting had left far too many wounds on his body. Even though he hadn't reached 10,000 years of age, he was already incredibly old. In truth, the majority of people were just like him. Over the years of fighting, no matter what level they reached, they would inevitably be left with all sorts of hidden wounds. When their cultivation was still advancing by leaps and bounds, these hidden wounds might not have mattered much, but when their cultivation stagnated, these hidden wounds would explode. Although it was said to be 10,000 years of age, how many people could truly live to that age? The majority of people could live for 7,000 or 8,000 years, and that was already an extremely long life. Wang Chong, who was of the same generation as him, was still at his peak, looking middle-aged. But these people were already old, as if they were people from two different eras. Perhaps only they could truly understand this sort of sorrow. That's right, Wang Chong, this old man has always made you my goal to surpass. Although you're tyrannical in your actions, you're not someone who can't tell right from wrong. How did you end up like this? If such a person had appeared in the Wang clan back then, you would have been the first to kill them. Another old-timer leaped out of Mount Qi, a white-haired old man. Once upon a time, he had been high-spirited and vigorous, but now he had one foot in the coffin. The difference of just one level from the profound life realm was like the difference between the heavens and the earth. More and more ancient existences trembled as they flew out of Mount Qi. At this time, the humans finally realized that so many ancient existences were still alive, especially their descendants. When they saw those trembling figures in the sky, their eyes brimmed with hot tears. That's the old patriarch of the Thunder Clan, the patriarch from 2 generations ago. Didn't they say that he died in meditation? How could he still be alive? It's rumored that although he's not of the king rank, he has the ability to rival king rank experts. And that old woman, isn't she the first supreme elder of the Limitless Star Palace? It's rumored that she died 1,000 years ago, but she's still alive. There's also the 9th elder of the Sun-Moon royal family. He was known as the strongest elder back then. He once single-handedly killed his way into the demon world and escaped unscathed. He was truly a powerhouse of his generation, but now he has become so white-haired. Time is truly a butcher's knife, and every slash makes one grow old. As more and more ancient existences were recognized, everyone was shocked. These people were all influential figures of the past. They had all been famous for a period of time, and they were the pride of heaven. But now, all that was left of them was their white hair and their trembling movements, reminding everyone that they were still alive. What do you ants know? Wang Chong coldly glanced at them. That was an entire clan. Except for a few who escaped, the entire Wang clan was exterminated. Hundreds of millions of people were killed, and even newborn infants were not spared. That Yi Shiwen was so insane, and yet you're still speaking up for him? I think you've really gone senile. Chapter 1789. Frenzied, simply frenzied, Wang Chong thought of the Wang family that had been razed to the ground. He was so angry that he was already crying tears of blood. He had already restrained himself by not slaughtering everyone in Mount Qi. Lunatic. Speaking of lunatics, who can compare to the lunatics of the Wang family? Do you know how many people have lost their families because of the betrayal of the Wang family? What does the death of the Wang family count for? The number of people who have died because of the Wang family's betrayal is dozens of times, hundreds of times more. Have you ever heard the cries of these people's souls? Yi Fan gritted his teeth and said coldly, "Those who betray the human race must die. You must have heard of this iron law. No matter who it is, they must die. What did our human race rely on to walk all the way from being slaves to glory and prosperity? We rely on this kind of perseverance to help each other. There is absolutely no room for any betrayal. Don't talk about great principles with this old man." When this old man was the patriarch of the Wang family, even the ancestor of the Yi family had to bow his head in front of this old man. Who do you think you are? You dare to clamor in front of me? This old man knows much more than you do, but what's the use of that? It can't wash away the blood of my Wang family and the souls of hundreds of millions of people. If you didn't come out today, then I would at most kill Yi Shiwen. But since you all came out to stop me, then don't blame me. If you are heartless, then don't blame me for being unjust. Today, I want rivers of blood to flow in Mount Qi. Since the human race has become like this, then there is no need for it to exist. Wang Chong said coldly. You are simply frenzied. The old patriarch of the Thunder Clan pointed at Wang Chong and said in a flustered and exasperated manner. His finger was trembling, and he was completely enraged. That's right. You have already lost your humanity. You actually want to slaughter everyone in Mount Qi. Crazy. He has already gone crazy. He is no longer the Wang Chong of the past. He should be killed. Great array. Kill the strong enemy. Let's fight today. Even if blood flows like a river, we won't let you get what you want. Even if we fight to our deaths, we will let you see that the blood of the human race hasn't run dry, and that our bones haven't been broken. In the face of this maddened and hardened Wang Chong, the humans despaired. Perhaps they had no other choice but to fight. Wang Chong, you have to think this over carefully. You have to know that King Taizong is still alive and well. Are you not afraid that he will punish you for your perverse actions? Yi Fan clenched his teeth and forced out these words under that immense pressure. Don't mention that fellow to me. He's the one who's crazy. Back then, our Wang family was always at his beck and call. How many of our ancestors bathed in blood on the battlefield? Haha, the entire Wang family has been uprooted by him. How ruthless! Wang Chong heartily laughed, and then said with a savage expression. He was on the verge of going insane. This news was like a bolt from the blue to him, especially since the other party was King Taizong. He was an invincible figure that could move unhindered through the world in an era where kings rose together. Thus, even though he was extremely angry, he had never thought of making trouble for King Taizong. Instead, he directly targeted Yi Shiwen. But this did not mean that he did not hate King Taizong. This legendary name had led the human race to glory, but it had destroyed their Wang family and pushed them into hell. Junior brother, don't worry. That King Taizong is nothing. So what if he's still alive? Even if he's still alive, he wouldn't dare to make an enemy of our Heaven Wasteland Palace. This is no longer their era. How could such a figure still be alive? Otherwise, he would have never appeared during the many crises that the human race faced back then. At this moment, the man in his 40s or 50s opened his mouth and said, That's right. There are many records of this in our Heaven Wasteland Palace. Now is no longer the era of legends or the era where kings rose together. Even if some of those figures survived, they are no longer in a flawless state. There's no need to worry at all. You don't have to worry at all. The cold woman in her 30s also opened her mouth and said, Moreover, those who dare to provoke our Heaven Wasteland Palace. So what if they're deities or kings? It's not like we don't have the means to kill them. You're actually from the Heaven Wasteland Palace. At this moment, the old patriarch of the Lei clan seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly remembered that they were actually that legendary existence. I never thought that there would still be people who know about our Heaven Wasteland Palace in this declining primordial era. It seems that having a long history and a deep foundation isn't without its benefits. Even if you guys have declined, you're still more knowledgeable than those country bumpkins in the ordinary world. The middle-aged man coldly said with a disdainful smile on his lips. That's right. Junior brother Wang has already joined our Heaven Wasteland Palace and is an official disciple. This time, he went home to visit his family, but he never expected to hear such grievous news. To think that junior brother Wang had once protected the human race of the primordial era, but in exchange, he ended up like this. It's really heartbreaking to hear. At this moment, the expressions of many of the old antiques present changed. Obviously, they had heard of the existence of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and knew about it. How is this possible? Doesn't the Heaven Wasteland Palace never accept humans? How is this possible? Heaven Wasteland Palace. Could it be the famous Heaven Wasteland Palace in the Xian world? Damn it, this Wang Chong actually joined the Heaven Wasteland Palace. No wonder he became so vicious and merciless. Rumor has it that the Heaven Wasteland Palace has never been divided by race. It recruits peerless geniuses from various races. Therefore, it's extremely powerful. It's an organization that specializes in proving one's Tao. It's so powerful that its tentacles reach deep into every corner of the Xian world. That's right, that's right. I remember now. It's rumored that the Xian world has the secret of eternal life. Therefore, many experts of the Xian realm enter the Xian world to search for the secret of eternal life. Over the years, there have been rumors that people have proven their Tao there. Although I don't know whether it's true or not, there's no doubt that there are too many outstanding people in the Xian world, and the Heaven Wasteland Palace is undoubtedly one of the strongest forces. Rumor has it that the Heaven Wasteland Palace once obtained the inheritance of an ancient god. They even slaughtered gods before. They have as many experts as there are clouds in the sky. Many of the old-timers began to explain the rumors they had heard. By now, many of the human elites were pale. They had actually provoked such a colossus. The primordial era had been glorious in the past and had once ruled over all the worlds in the universe. Therefore, they had heard of many of the secrets of the universe and weren't completely ignorant of them. It wasn't just the human elites. Even the major forces that were paying attention to this place turned pale when they heard about the existence of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Is the Heaven Wasteland Palace really going to interfere with the internal affairs of our ancient Barrens continent? Don't forget that many of our ancestors from the primordial era have entered the Xian world. Don't think that only your Wang family has ancestors cultivating in the Xian world. Do you think that we don't have any? Yi Fan said coldly. The human race had been glorious for so many years. Naturally, they would have Xian realm experts. In the past, there were even kings. How could they lack Xian realm experts? Other than a few of them who stayed behind to guard the human race, most of them had already entered the Xian world. It wasn't just the human race. The other races were the same. However, the human race could no longer contact their ancestors in the Xian world. They couldn't even send messages. The reason was simple. There was an extremely strong barrier in the Xian world. Even king stage experts couldn't pass through it. Only Xian realm experts could. Therefore, even when the human race was in danger and needed support, they couldn't contact the Xian world because all the Xian realm experts had fallen. If it wasn't for Yi Shiwen, the human race would have been in danger. That's right. We also have ancestors cultivating in the Xian world. They can't be arrogant for too long. Wang Chong, if the ancestors of the Sun Moon Royal Tribe know what you have done, you won't be able to escape even if you run to the ends of the earth. So what? The human race is just a small force in the Xian world. They don't have any power. Moreover, compared to the Heaven Wasteland Palace, they are nothing. Would they dare to start a war with the Heaven Wasteland Palace because of you? That's good. We can destroy them in minutes, and we won't have to worry about the ancient treaty anymore. The middle-aged man sneered. He obviously didn't care about Zhong Ruigan's threat. He was very confident. Heaven Wasteland Palace, don't go too far. Don't think that the human race of the desolate antiquity is easy to bully. Yi Fan gritted his teeth. You're going too far. Ha! What I like the most is to bully others. I heard that there are a few Tao weapons in the desolate antiquity. They were left behind by the king stage experts. It's such a waste to have them in your hands. Now, let's let the Heaven Wasteland Palace get their hands on them. We can use them to display their true power. Who knows? We might be able to learn from the ancestors and find a path to immortality. The middle-aged man laughed wildly. Wishful thinking. Immediately, the remaining experts of the royal family glared at him. Those few Tao weapons were left behind by their ancestors and could be said to be the most precious treasures of their clan. They wouldn't touch them easily. Apart from a few that had fallen into the hands of the royal family, there were still a few in their own ancestral land. This middle-aged man wanted to take away their Tao weapons. It was like pulling the firewood from the bottom of the pot. The middle-aged man snorted and said, "Wishful thinking? This matter is not up to you. There is nothing that the Heaven Wasteland Palace doesn't want." How arrogant. I want to see what ability the Heaven Wasteland Palace has to say such arrogant words. Chapter 1790. What a big tone. I want to see what kind of ability your heaven wasteland palace has to say such arrogant words. A cold shout turned into sound waves that directly crushed towards the middle-aged man. Umph. The middle-aged man's reaction was even faster. With a cold snort, he spat out air waves from his nostrils and directly formed a protective shield around his body, protecting him within. The sound waves formed by the cold shout directly disintegrated and disappeared without a trace. Courting death, you actually dare to attack me, the middle-aged man shouted coldly. Then, a long spear appeared in his hand. This long spear was flickering with brilliant lights and overflowing colors. A frightening evil aura was emitted from the long spear. It was unknown how many enemies' blood it had drunk in order to have such an evil aura. Many souls of the enemies he had killed were attracted to the spear and were digested into an even more powerful force. The cold aura emitted from the spear made people feel a chill down their spines. The spear instantly pierced through the sky and directly set off a terrifying air wave. Its entire body glowed, and the terrifying power directly made the formations in the Chi Mountain area feel a strong threat, and they instantly came to life. It must be known that Wang Chang's pressure had not even been able to revive the formations in the Chi Mountain area, but with a single move from this person, all the formations in the Chi Mountain area came to life. It was truly terrifying. He alone was like a god, with endless murderous intent. The spear directly pointed into the void, and the spear light splashed out, smashing everything. Many formations responded and collapsed, and even the murderous intent could not stop it. Everyone was incomparably shocked. Even though this was a formation that they had added later and wasn't an ancient formation, it was still able to block an all-out attack from a King Division expert. But now, it had instantly collapsed, and it wasn't even aimed at them. From this, it could be seen how terrifying this person was. Everyone's heart skipped a beat, and many people suddenly became worried. From the voice just now, many people could tell that that person was Yi Shiwen. And Yi Shiwen was now their only hope. As for King Taizong, in fact, they themselves did not have too much hope because they were very clear that King Taizong would not act so casually, and they were afraid that there were some restrictions. Bang! With a loud bang, the spear directly smashed the sky and pointed into a golden light, and then everyone saw the golden light shatter, revealing a palm. The tip of the spear pointed at the palm and made a shocking roar, and then burst into endless sparks, igniting the void. In an instant, the vast sky was set ablaze and turned into a sea of fire. One could well imagine how shocking this collision was. Compared to the sea of fire that was formed by the sparks, the middle-aged man was more concerned about the palm that was able to block the tip of his spear. This was simply inconceivable. His spear could be called a lethal weapon, and no one knew how many experts it had killed, including many Xian realm experts, were directly stabbed to death by his spear. But now, he could not even pierce this palm. At the thought of this, he was slightly shocked. However, before he could continue to be shocked, he saw a huge hand reaching out from the void. Umph. What heaven wasteland palace? You're only SSO. Eat my slap. But he heard a clear roar, and then a huge palm fiercely slapped towards him. Umph. The middle-aged man was not to be outdone. The real Yuan on his body soared, and turned into a demonic aura that filled the sky. This was actually a peerless great demon, and the ominous aura of a supreme master spread in all directions, causing people to instinctively feel a chill. At this moment, the long spear in his hand shot out once again, instantly turning into a peerless, ferocious beast, as if it was about to roar towards the sky. Fiery lights surged as it directly pierced towards the big hand. He used all his strength to attack, smashing the world, and collided with the big hand. The terrible collision was like Mars colliding with Earth, and sparks flew in all directions. Bang! An incomparably loud roar was heard, and at this moment, the middle-aged man suddenly realized that the big hand had actually turned and directly grabbed the tip of the spear. He secretly thought that it was not good, and immediately turned pale with fright. He quickly withdrew the long spear, but at this time, the long spear did not move at all in the big hand. When he pulled it out, only the sound of metal rubbing against each other could be heard. The power that burst out caused cracks to appear in the void. The power was astonishing. Everyone turned pale with fright. This big hand was really terrifying. It actually had such a terrifying power that it could firmly hold the long spear without moving. Some people had already guessed that behind this terrifying big hand, there must be an unparalleled physical strength. Otherwise, just the sharp spear light on the tip of the spear would have directly blown the big hand into pieces. That was a terrifying weapon that had surpassed the level of an ultimate weapon. And in terms of power, it firmly suppressed the middle-aged man, not giving him any chance to turn around. Boom! Endless golden waves spread in the void, and in an instant, the sky was paved into a golden world. In this golden world, a long sword cut across the vast sky with monstrous, ferocious power. It had a powerful aura of supremacy, and it rushed towards the middle-aged man. The murderous aura covered the sky, and the universe was split into two halves. It was obviously just a weapon, but it gave off a feeling of a weapon master descending to the world to conquer the world. Damn it! At this time, the middle-aged man struggled to pull the long spear in his hand, but it did not move an inch as the big hand grabbed the tip of the spear. No matter how much spear light splashed, it still could not explode. How can there be someone with such terrifying power? I don't believe it. With a loud roar, he instantly turned into a terrifying, ferocious beast. That was his original body. This ferocious beast looked like a fierce tiger, but it was even more terrifying. There was a pair of sharp horns on its head and a pair of incomparably huge wings on its back, surrounding him. He opened his big mouth, and endless power condensed in his mouth. Then, it instantly turned into a frightening shockwave and fiercely collided with the golden sword. Boom! The world was shaking violently. Terrifying ripples spread out in circles. The battle intent penetrated the entire sky. The ripples caused by the battle between the two sides made the expressions of the experts of both the human race and the alien race change dramatically. Many people felt cold from head to toe. They felt a chill on their backs. It didn't matter which race they belonged to. Everyone was completely shocked. They reacted at this time. The person who had come should be Yi Shiwen without a doubt. However, they never knew that Yi Shiwen actually had such a terrifying fighting prowess. Originally, the people of the human race were very worried that Yi Shiwen was not a match for the middle-aged man, who was at the profound life realm. But now, everything seemed to be completely beyond their expectations. Profound life realm. This Yi Shiwen has actually stepped into the profound life realm. How long has it been since he stepped into the King Division? How did he advance by leaps and bounds again? Many people were shocked. At this time, the news from the ancient Phoenix realm had yet to arrive. Therefore, they simply did not know what had happened in the ancient Phoenix realm, and how did Yi Shiwen completely step into the profound life realm. To them, this was undoubtedly a shocking news. For the human race, Yi Shiwen, who had stepped into the profound life realm, was undoubtedly a cardiotonic for the human race, who had fallen into a predicament. The experts of the King Division were only the most tyrannical experts on the surface. As for the profound realm, only the experts of the profound realm were truly qualified to determine the outcome of the ancient Baron's continent. Nowadays, as there were fewer and fewer people who could prove their Tao, the road to proving their Tao became narrower and narrower. Therefore, many people began to choose to try their luck in the profound world. Legend had it that there was a secret to eternal life and a way to prove one's Tao. No one knew whether it was true or not, but it attracted a large number of profound realm experts from various worlds to rush there. Even in the ancient barons, there were extremely few profound realm experts who stayed behind to guard the place. Most of them were already very old when they stepped into the profound realm. They knew that they had no chance to step into a higher realm, let alone find the secret to eternal life. Therefore, these people were often the old antiques of various forces and races. These people were also a group of people who could truly influence the situation of the ancient Baron's continent. In the past, the human race also had such a group of people. Afterwards, the imperial court was sacrificed, and all the profound realm experts died in battle, causing the human race to plummet. Even with Yi Fan and Yi Shiwen stepping into the king division, the position of the human race did not change much. If it wasn't for King Taizong, the various races would not give Yi Shiwen any face, nor would they take Yi Shiwen seriously. Therefore, they did not even inform the human race about the Thousand Clans Convention. However, now that Yi Shiwen had stepped into the profound life stage, everything was completely different. The human race would once again have the right to speak in the ancient desolation and would once again regain a place for themselves. This would also lay a solid foundation for the revival of the human race. As for the other races, their mood was much more complicated at this time. For them, Yi Shiwen stepping into the profound life realm was undoubtedly a mixed bag. The advantage was that there was one more expert who could contend against the demon army. However, the disadvantage was that it would not be so easy for them to continue to encroach on the human race's territory. Yi Shiwen alone was enough to protect the interests of a considerable part of the human race. In the eyes of some people, it was simply hard for them to eat and sleep, especially in the eyes of those forces who had offended Yi Shiwen. Hiding your head and showing your tail. Do you dare to come out and fight me? The middle-aged man finally roared impatiently. Why not? Along with this cold voice, a figure appeared in the void, followed by the next wave of rapid attacks. Chapter 1791. Another huge hand directly pressed down from the void. Rumble. With a series of loud booms, the entire void was completely shattered, shattering inch by inch in front of everyone. Endless spiritual qi formed a monstrous wave that expanded outwards. Yi Shiwen's offensive was fast to the extreme. It fell down like a sudden clap of thunder towards that demon tiger. The huge qi-condensed hand grew larger and larger in the void and slammed down. And at this moment, the demon tiger directly opened its bloody mouth, and with a power that could devour 100,000 soldiers, it directly swallowed Yi Shiwen's qi-condensed hand into its stomach. The king of 100 Beasts' might was fully displayed. He looked up to the sky and roared unceasingly. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Yi Shiwen. In the face of this man who had forced him into such a predicament, he had no choice but to reveal his true body. His killing intent was undisguised. How can it be so easy to digest what you've swallowed? However, when Yi Shiwen saw that his qi-condensed hand had been swallowed in one gulp, he sneered and a little disdainful. Explode! A loud shout sounded. What did you say? Before the demon tiger could finish speaking, it heard a loud bang. The qi-condensed hand in its stomach suddenly exploded with a loud bang. Countless spiritual qi formed a shockwave that was like an endless number of blades that wreaked havoc in its body. Then, the demon tiger let out a miserable cry and was directly sent flying. Only then did everyone see that its stomach had already been blown to pieces. A large hole had been blasted out, and flesh and blood were flying everywhere. The situation was extremely miserable. When the human race saw this scene, they slightly heaved a sigh of relief. If they were allowed to continue being arrogant, even if they could use their trump cards to block the three profound life realm experts, their vitality would still be greatly damaged. And the current human race could no longer withstand such torment. Senior. At this moment, when Wang Chong saw the miserable state of the demon tiger, his expression changed greatly. He hurriedly rushed up to take a look, but he saw a sharp sword qi directly piercing through the horizon, heading straight for his head. He was shocked. He had already been taught a lesson by his senior brother. At this time, he didn't feel that he had underestimated this person. He secretly wondered who this person was, and when did such a powerful expert appear in the human clan. Previously, the human race also had a few old profound life realm experts. Although they did not go out to meet others, for people of his level, they were still able to see them. Therefore, he knew those profound life realm experts very well. He did not care about those old profound life realm experts. Even if they were still alive, they could not possibly be his match. Who could have imagined that this person would actually be so incredible, heavily injuring his senior as soon as he appeared? This was simply too shocking. Umph. Your Wong clan helped the evildoer and betrayed the human race. I was the one who uprooted you. If you want my life, then come. Those who betrayed the human race deserve to die. Right now, you can no longer distinguish right from wrong. You've long since fallen to the same level as them, and yet you still want to slaughter the human race of Mount Shi to the last. It seems to me that you've truly gone mad, deranged. An extremely cold voice came from the void, immediately causing Wang Chong's heart to freeze. After a moment of shock, his eyes turned bloodshot, and fury instantly surged from the soles of his feet to his head. Yi Shiwen. He raised his head and saw that it was an azure-clothed youth, wielding a sword formed from sword chi. As he stood in the air, his face that could not be considered too handsome was currently filled with indifference. There was not a shred of pity in his eyes, only torrential killing intent. Correct? I am Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen did not deny it. Then go to hell for me, Wang Chong shouted, his eyes bloodshot, and like a mad tiger, he directly pounced in Yi Shiwen's direction to kill. Boom! Suddenly, the terrifying strength of a mysterious realm master was released. The boundless coercion crushed everything in its path and instantly materialized into a huge domain, which directly shrouded Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was directly shrouded in the domain, and suddenly felt as if he had fallen into a swamp. Every move was bound by the powerful power of the rules, and there was no way for him to move freely. Today is the day you die. The next moment, Wang Chong had already pounced in front of Yi Shiwen. In this domain, he was a god, the only god in the world, and could dominate everything. In my domain, no one can escape. A wide, long blade appeared in Wang Chong's hand, exuding a terrifying light. The blade light splashed in all directions and fiercely chopped down in Yi Shiwen's direction. The blade light was getting closer and closer, but Yi Shiwen did not seem to be able to move at all, and there was no reaction at all. Wang Chong's face revealed a somewhat sinister smile, as if he could see the scene of Yi Shiwen being chopped in half, and finally, he had his revenge. However, at that critical moment, a loud roar resounded. Dang! The sound turned into a monstrous sound wave and swept in all directions. Everyone was shocked and quickly looked over, only to see that when the blade was 3 inches away from Yi Shiwen's head, it was stopped by a big hand, and they saw that Yi Shiwen's hand was exuding a golden light, and the blazing light was shining between the heaven and the earth. So strong, his body is so strong. He can easily receive this attack, and not even the slightest bit of difficulty. His body is comparable to a magic tool. Many people were suddenly shocked, although there was a record of Yi Shiwen receiving the long spear before. But after all, not as shocking as seeing Yi Shiwen receive this blade with their own eyes. How is this possible? Even Wang Chong, who was in a frenzy of anger, felt shocked. One could imagine the shock that Yi Shiwen gave them. It turns out that the old patriarch of the Wang family is only SSO. No wonder the Wang family wants to sell their clan for glory and want to kill me. If this is all you have, then you are still far from it. Yi Shiwen's mouth flashed a somewhat disdainful smile. You are courting death. Wang Chong was flustered and exasperated by Yi Shiwen. He instantly launched another attack. The long blade in his hand chopped down once again, and the blade light tore through the sky, leaving countless afterimages. Each blade was an afterimage, but each blade was real. It was difficult for an ordinary person to distinguish between real and fake, and they would be defeated by this set of blade techniques. However, in the face of this sky full of blade shadows, Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry, and directly grabbed the void in the sky. Whether it was real blade shadows or fake blade shadows, all of them were instantly crushed by him, and disappeared in an instant. If it was not for the fact that the sky that was cut by the blade light had not yet recovered, everyone was afraid that their eyes were playing tricks on them. But in fact, nothing had happened at all. This Yi Shiwen is so strong. How can this be? This Wang Chong, he has already entered the profound life realm many years ago, and then directly entered the profound world, Why is his performance now not as powerful as Yi Shiwen? That's right. Not only Wang Chong, but also his senior brother. Isn't he also not a match for Yi Shiwen? Fierce. Too fierce. He has only cultivated for a total of a few years, but he is actually so terrifying. In the future, it is not impossible for him to become a king and prove his Tao. In the face of the incomparably powerful Yi Shiwen, although the onlookers were not that nervous, they still had 100 different feelings. Some people were shocked by Yi Shiwen's tyrannical strength. Some were happy, and some were unwilling and angry. He stood in the sky, straight like a spear, towering into the clouds. Yi Shiwen, who had unleashed his full combat power, could even be said to have reached the level of heaven and earth, compared to the usual combat power he could display. In the eyes of others, it was simply an inconceivable thing. "You are only SSO. Then it's my turn," Yi Shiwen lightly shouted. In his eyes, Wang Chong's strength was not even comparable to Feng Yuan's, and was simply not a match for him. "I want to see what kind of background your Heaven Wasteland Palace has. You guys might as well come and me together. It is too much of a waste of time to fight one by one. Arrogant." That cold woman shouted coldly. She seemed to be reprimanding Yi Shiwen for his arrogance. However, the speed of her attack wasn't slow at all. A long whip lashed out like a dragon. It swept across the void and smashed everything in its path. It directly lashed towards Yi Shiwen's head. Bang! A huge collision sound like that of gold and iron colliding. The long whip was directly caught in Yi Shiwen's hand, unable to cause any harm to him at all. And at this moment, the middle-aged man's figure directly appeared behind Yi Shiwen. The injuries on his body had also almost recovered, although it was not as fast as Yi Shiwen's Phoenix regeneration technique. After swallowing a secret medicine, he quickly recovered 70 to 80%. His long spear smashed everything. An endless spear radiance condensed in the void, countless spear principles in the void, constantly boiling, flashing, and in an instant, pierced towards Yi Shiwen. After the attack just now, how could they not understand that Yi Shiwen's strength was tyrannical, and perhaps none of them could deal with him alone? If they could not join forces, they were afraid that they would also be in danger. The spear radiance smashed the vast sky, as if in an instant, covering everything between the heavens and the earth, leaving only the roar of the spear radiance when it broke through the sky, and the ear-piercing sound of piercing. Boom! A terrifying mushroom cloud seethed and grew bigger and bigger, covering everything in an instant. This strike contained the boundless laws of the spear Tao, directly crushing atoms and causing a nuclear explosion. Everyone opened their magic eyes one after another, and saw that Yi Shiwen was standing in the center of the nuclear explosion. His face was expressionless. His entire body was flickering with golden rays of light, and it was protecting him. He had also caught that terrifying spear light with one hand. Chapter 1792. Is this all you've got? Yi Shiwen sneered and attacked again. His big hand grabbed towards the void, and a sharp sword appeared. Endless golden light radiated from the sword as it slashed out, creating a huge crack in the space. Everyone was shocked by Yi Shiwen's sword. It was even more tyrannical than they had imagined. The sword light instantly tore out and slashed towards the middle-aged man. A huge armor appeared on the middle-aged man's body. It was a leather armor, but it was not an ordinary leather armor. It was made from the fur of an ancestor of their clan and had extraordinary power. Boom! The sword light directly slashed on the leather armor. The leather armor immediately began to burst with intense light, causing a violent rebound. However, the sword light was even sharper. The law of swordsmanship tore through everything. That endless light was torn apart by Yi Shiwen on the spot. Then, the sword light cut a huge crack on the leather armor. Poochie! Blood splattered out and formed a blood pillar in the void. It was a spectacular sight. After that, Yi Shiwen did not stop at all. The sword light once again scattered and slashed behind him. Wang Chong's long saber had already slashed towards Yi Shiwen's back. At this time, he had no choice but to attack. He originally thought that his senior brother would be able to hold on for a long time. who knew that he would be defeated by Yi Shiwen in just a moment. Such a scene was really terrifying. Clang! The saber and the sword collided and burst out with a violent roar. Just the aftermath of the collision between the two sides could send a king stage expert flying. Compared to a king stage expert, there was simply an earth-shattering change in the strength of a profound realm expert. The fierce collision between the two sides was like a scene of doomsday. Everywhere was torn apart, and the space was opening and closing. It was extremely terrifying. At this time, the cold woman's long whip had already lashed over. It directly set off a boundless storm and directly blasted out a secret technique of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Yi Shiwen was fearless. He attacked ruthlessly with his other hand and blasted a punch towards that cold woman. Rumble! An incomparably loud roar was heard. Tiger devours the world. Suddenly, after an incomparably loud roar, a huge shadow descended from the sky, looking down on the world with disdain. This was a terrifying tiger demon. Although it was only a shadow, it had an invincible might. The middle-aged man activated the tiger god's bloodline and conjured a huge manhole cover. However, the phantom claw directly smashed down towards Yi Shiwen. When everyone saw this scene, they were almost scared to death. They couldn't believe just what kind of terrifying existence they were looking at. That was the projection of a god's will, and it was stimulated by his own bloodline. At this time, who would dare to continue staying at the place where the two sides were fighting? Wouldn't that be courting death? What a joke! The battle between four profound realm experts was enough to create an extremely terrifying battlefield. It wouldn't be difficult for them to destroy an area with a radius of 10,000 miles. If there were no checks and balances, even the entire Mount Qi would be destroyed. Fortunately, after everyone returned to the range of the formation, they felt much more at ease. At the most critical moment, it was still the formation left by the ancestors that was the safest. That man actually has the bloodline of a god, and he can actually activate it to such an extent. It's really terrifying. Many people were extremely shocked. As one of the higher-ups of the human clan, their vision was naturally not bad. After all, the remote antiquity era used to be incomparably glorious. In fact, many people had the bloodline of a god, but in the end, only a few people could successfully activate it, let alone to such an extent. Unless it was innately awakened, like Yi Shukong who awakened 5 levels of the bloodline in one go, it was already extremely amazing. This phantom of the tiger god was invincible, and its huge claws pressed down, causing the void to completely collapse. This tiger god's momentum was endless, and its power was boundless. It was as if the king of all beasts had appeared all of a sudden and suppressed everything in the world. This was a real god. Now, even if only a trace of the bloodline had been activated, it was still terrifying. In the face of this terrifying existence in the eyes of everyone, Yi Shiwen's expression did not change. Observing person scripture was running in his body, and the tyrant body technique was boiling. A domineering and peerless aura filled the sky, as if a peerless overlord was fighting on the battlefield. Yi Shiwen's tyrant body technique was running nonstop, and the long sword in his hand directly dragged out a terrifying light, and then instantly slashed out and fiercely collided with the phantom of the tiger god. Boom! With an incomparably loud bang, the long sword fiercely slashed the claw. In an instant, endless light splashed out from both sides. The violent collision caused the heavens and the earth to tremble. In front of everyone, it was like dominoes completely collapsing in an instant. Wallalala! The array of the entire Qi mountain area seemed to have suffered a terrible collision, and like a cloth in the wind, it was shaking as if it would be broken at any time. Many people looked at this scene, and suddenly they were no longer as calm as before. Although they were very confident in the ancient array, and the ancient array had saved the human race countless times in the past, but now looking at the battle between Yi Shiwen and the tiger god, they suddenly did not have much confidence. Would the array formation really be able to withstand such a terrifying battle? This scene was really too terrifying, and one could almost see the chaos flowing down from the broken void. The battle between both sides seemed to have directly pierced through the sky. Countless astral winds were blowing fiercely on Yi Shiwen's face, as if his flesh was going to be scraped off from his face. His clothes were fluttering rapidly, and the terrible power was directly resolved by him into the void. The place where he was standing, the space had been completely shattered by this terrible power. The eyes of the spies of the major forces were staring straight at this scene. This Yi Shiwen was simply not ordinary, fierce and tyrannical. He was actually able to fight head-on with the Tiger God's phantom without falling into a disadvantageous position. Moreover, there was no sign of stagnation at all. What Tiger God? It's just so. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly and waved the long sword in his hand. The laws entwined on the sword shook violently, annihilating everything, and directly bombarded the huge manhole cover. Boom! There was another huge roar, and the space had been annihilated into powder. Puff! The middle-aged man spurted out a mouthful of blood, and under the bombardment of such a terrible power, there was no way for him to completely withstand it. Although his strength had been increased with the help of the awakened Tiger God's bloodline, it seemed that no matter what kind of increase he got, he would be completely bombarded by Yi Shiwen. Ding, ding, ding. He took a few steps back, leaving behind huge footprints in the sky. Each footprint represented a piece of the void that had been trampled and collapsed. He only felt a terrible power in his chest, as if he was going to spit out a mouthful of blood at any time. This was a terrible power that could uproot a mountain, as if he was really the reincarnation of the legendary Overlord. As the middle-aged man retreated again and again, the shadow of the Tiger God also suddenly became a lot thinner. Compared to just now, it was naturally far inferior. At this time, Yi Shiwen's next wave of attack was almost like a shadow, directly bombarding the tiger deity. Above the sky, his big hand grabbed towards the void, and suddenly, a long spear was formed in the void, integrated with countless divinities, with a monstrous divine radiance, and directly pierced towards the tiger deity's shadow. Boom! The shadow of the Tiger God was directly penetrated by the long spear and was fiercely nailed to the ground, unable to move. Everyone kept quiet out of fear. They couldn't believe it. They had also felt the power of the tiger deity's phantom. It was really tyrannical and terrifying. When it fought with Yi Shiwen, many of the matrix arrays in the entire Qi mountain area trembled crazily. One could imagine how terrifying it was. The middle-aged man's combat power also soared to the extreme because of the shadow of the Tiger God. The shadow of the Tiger God still wanted to struggle to get up. After all, it was not a corpse, so even if it was penetrated by the long spear, it was not fatal, and it could still struggle to get up. Want to make a comeback? Dream on? Yi Shiwen sneered and suddenly stomped his foot. Boom! Another burst of earth-shaking and mountain-shaking occurred, and the entire virtual shadow directly hit the ground. It was kicked by Yi Shiwen, and its entire body began to disintegrate little by little. Then, with a loud bang, it completely disintegrated into powder. Puff! The middle-aged man directly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body suddenly flew out. The shadow of the Tiger God had been connected with him since he summoned it, and now it was directly smashed by Yi Shiwen. For him, it was also a heavy blow. His eyes looked at Yi Shiwen in disbelief. I used my trump card, but I am still not Yi Shiwen's opponent. How tyrannical is Yi Shiwen? However, his shock only lasted for a second, because in the next second, Yi Shiwen had already rushed in front of him, and the long sword in his hand directly carried a sky full of golden light and directly pierced into his lower abdomen. Puff! The golden long sword directly pierced through him, and blood bloomed like a flower. He could feel that the vitality in his body was flowing away at an alarming speed. You, my son, can't my son is... Chapter 1793. What do you mean your son? Your grandson. Yi Shiwen directly drew his sword. He did not look back and directly rushed towards Wang Chong, because he knew that this middle-aged man was dead. You actually dared to kill him. Do you know who he is? Wang Cheng looked at the middle-aged man who was stabbed to death by Yi Shiwen in shock. Could it be that he is the son of someone else? Yi Shiwen sneered disdainfully, but his hands did not slow down at all. The sword light directly tore through the vast sky. Its speed was extremely fast. Clang! 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 Yi Shiwen's sword and Wang Cheng's long saber collided fiercely. The momentum was like a mountain. He wanted to get rid of all three of them in one go. There was no point in continuing to probe. No matter where they came from, these people could not be left alive today. From the moment Wang Cheng said that he wanted to slaughter everyone in Mount Qi, there was no room for buffer. Even if he did not say so, Yi Shiwen was his target, so it could be said that there was no room for buffer between the two sides. He did not give Wang Cheng any room at all. He directly slashed with his sword. Wang Cheng did not even have time to say anything before he was beaten by Yi Shiwen again and again. Everyone was shocked. Yi Shiwen wants to kill all three of them here. Did he know what the Heaven Wasteland Palace meant? That was a profound realm expert. It wasn't easy for any expert to cultivate, but he was killed just like that. You are dead. You even dared to kill him. No one can save you now. The cold woman was about to go mad with anger. She shuddered at the thought of the terrible punishment she would face when she returned. She had lived for so many years and was used to seeing storms. But when she thought of that incident, she still felt a chill run down her spine. She coldly snorted, and a powerful energy surged out from her body. Shortly after, a powerful talisman flew out. A terrifying pressure surged out from the talisman, crushing the heavens and shaking the primordial chaos. The talisman flew in the sky and blossomed with incomparable radiance. It looked like a second sun. What is that? Countless people from the human race cried out in surprise. They did not know what this talisman was. How could it be so powerful? There's a god's aura on it. Could it be a talisman left behind by a god? This Heaven Wasteland Hall is really terrifying and has such a deep foundation. To think that an ordinary official disciple of the profound life stage would actually have such a defensive talisman. This is simply unimaginable. Yi Shiwen fixed his eyes on it and saw that this auxiliary road was engraved with countless great Tao principles. It was also flashing with the radiance of divinity. He couldn't be more familiar with this because he had too much divinity in his body. Countless laws and rules flickered on it, and a boundless might was emitted. At the initial stage, its might was boundless. When this pressure came crashing down, it caused the formation at the foot of Mount Qi to violently rebound and fluctuate violently. Many ancient magic tools were awakened under this pressure, as if they were going to compete with them. This is a talisman left behind by a deity. Its might is boundless, and I'm afraid it can even pierce through the sky. The Heaven Wasteland Hall has such a terrifying foundation. She's just an official disciple, but she actually has such a magic tool. Yi Shiwen was expressionless in the face of the pressure from this talisman. Above his head, the yin-yang life and death diagram emerged. Under the pressure of this talisman, his yin-yang life and death diagram had actually awakened all of a sudden. One could imagine how high the quality of this talisman was. Boom! The yin-yang life and death diagram launched an attack that could shatter the sky with lightning speed. It was as brilliant as a comet hitting the Earth. A huge muffled sound seemed to shake the entire universe, setting off a terrifying sound wave. Countless martial artists who were watching the battle instantly felt a terrifying power boiling in their ears, causing them to temporarily lose their hearing. One could imagine how terrifying it was. The smoke and dust dispersed. Under such an attack, that cold woman actually didn't have the slightest bit of injury. She just looked at Yi Shiwen coldly and said, "Prepare to die. This is a talisman refined by a god using his blood essence. You can't possibly be his opponent. You killed him, and now I want you to pay with your life." In the void, the talisman shone brilliantly. Countless divine rays hung down, looking exceptionally spectacular. Then, a terrifying divine ray directly swept out. It was fast and accurate, and fiercely bombarded Yi Shiwen. Boom! The sky within a radius of 100 miles was completely turned into nothingness. Even the chaos was evaporated. One could imagine how terrifying it looked. It was slowly recovering bit by bit. Humph, I thought you were something amazing, but you can't even withstand a single blow. That cold woman hadn't finished speaking when she was horrified to see Yi Shiwen walking out of the huge, dark hole step by step. The yin-yang life and death diagram above his head was protecting him. This scene made everyone who saw it feel as if they had fainted from the effects of a drug. For them, such an attack was simply possible for a deity. Whether it was the attack of Yi Shiwen's yin-yang life and death diagram or the attack of the woman's talisman, it was extremely tyrannical for them. That is, the yin-yang life and death diagram? Suddenly, someone recognized the yin-yang life and death diagram that was constantly hovering above Yi Shiwen. But then, there was a feeling of taking a deep breath. How could they not know the great name of the yin-yang life and death diagram? Back then, the Abyss Devil Lord snatched away most of it, but it also became famous because of it. Many people recalled that the yin-yang life and death diagram was once recorded in many ancient books. They were no longer unfamiliar with the yin-yang life and death diagram. Even many people knew that in order to suppress that small piece of the yin-yang life and death diagram, the Yi family actually gave their clan's treasure, the pseudo-Dao rune, to Yi Shiwen. That seal word made many people jealous. In the end, it fell into Yi Shiwen's hands and could only be used to suppress the yin-yang life and death diagram. In the eyes of many people, it could be described as casting pearls before swine. It was really too wasteful. But no one expected that under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen actually refined the yin-yang life and death diagram. And, judging from Yi Shiwen's situation, it was obvious that it was not as simple as refining it. Perhaps he went a step further and directly supplemented the power of yin and yang life and death. Even if the result of the repair was not as powerful as the original, it was enough to be regarded as a shocking existence for them. He's really going to become powerful. When he first obtained the fragment of the yin-yang diagram of life and death, I'm afraid that not many people would have thought that he would actually be able to use it one day. Moreover, he would be able to use it so well. Yeah, when Yi Shiwen just rose, he was just in the law manifestation realm. He could not enter our eyes at all. But how long has it been? He has actually grown to a level that we can only look up to. I'm afraid such a person has the possibility of becoming a dragon in the future. Many people were extremely shocked, and many people secretly regretted that they had really misjudged Yi Shiwen. They did not expect Yi Shiwen to reach such a level. Otherwise, whether it was killing him, dealing with him in advance, or giving him a favor, it was far better than the current situation. Do you think this broken diagram can stop me? At this time, the cold woman snorted coldly. The talisman above her body began to spin violently, and a terrible coercion crushed down. Boom! At this time, the yin-yang life and death diagram above Yi Shiwen's head seemed to be severely provoked. It directly erupted with a monstrous coercion, blocking the divine power of the talisman. Everyone felt a sense of madness. This was a kind of peak combat power. The martial instruments and talismans held by both sides were far beyond their imagination. Although they certainly could not exert the most powerful strength, it was already enough for them. Yi Shiwen didn't hesitate at all. He planned to attack. Countless spirit crystals were being madly burned while he was reviving the yin-yang life and death diagram. Then they were transformed into power. A large number of spirit crystals were being burned at every moment. He couldn't continue to delay like this. Go to hell! Wang Chang's furious voice came from behind Yi Shiwen. Taking advantage of Yi Shiwen's main energy being restrained by the talisman, he decided to make a move directly and put Yi Shiwen to death. Despicable! At this time, many people of the human race shouted angrily. Originally, it was already unfair for the three of them to fight against Yi Shiwen, and now they took advantage of Yi Shiwen's confrontation with the talisman. It was simply shameless. This Wang Chong has already completely lost the pride of our human race. However, at this critical moment, Yi Shiwen, who everyone thought was mostly restrained by the talisman, suddenly moved. With a turn, he directly stepped out of the sky full of golden brilliance and directly slashed his sword towards Wang Chong. Yi Shiwen, go to hell. At this time, Wang Chong's eyes were bloodshot, and he was already extremely angry. Although the sneak attack did not succeed and was discovered by Yi Shiwen, at this time, he did not care so much. First, there was the revenge of the extermination of the Wang family, and then the death of this middle-aged man. For him, the deterrence of the latter was even more unforgettable. At this time, it could be said that enemies had met, and his eyes were exceptionally red. He wanted to take the opportunity to kill Yi Shiwen in one fell swoop. Even if Yi Shiwen reacted, he was not afraid at all. Yi Shiwen certainly could not be the same as before. But Yi Shiwen did not panic at all, and methodically slashed his sword towards Wang Chong. Bang! A loud roar sounded. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.